Hero of the Otherworldly Castle. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76, Siege of Landé. Now all these losses are just for greater gains in the future. Yes, in his eyes, the casualties of these natives are losses of the Zaire kingdom. He has no mercy, but feels that the current speed is a bit slow, but there is no way. For the safety of these recruits, he can only let them practice first. Speed up. Try to finish cleaning the battlefield before dark. Zhang Wei saw that the soldiers who had gone through several battles had become an elite, so he ordered to speed up. After these few days, what should have been experienced and tempered has been completed. The next step is to complete the task of the monarch. It was completely dark, and the soldiers rested in the camp that originally belonged to this tribe. After most of the day of fighting and cleaning the battlefield, they are now tired. When the soldiers were cleaning the battlefield, they would go to make up for the wounded, and those who pretended to be dead or surrendered would be tied up and sent to the rear security office. They would arrange for the militia to escort these prisoners. Those who can be escorted to the rear are all young and strong, without old and weak. The method of dealing with the old and weak who could not run was very simple. Zhang Wei was in the main account, looking at the intelligence in his hand, which was sent from several other places. According to the intelligence, the second and third columns were progressing smoothly and had reached the expected combat positions. The encirclement of the light cavalry formation was also shrinking with their attack. To ensure that no fish slipped through the net and could escape from their encirclement, the light cavalry could be said to be very busy, patrolling all the time. When they encountered the fleeing natives, they drove them forward and dealt with those who could not be driven away on the spot. Due to time constraints, the bodies of the cleaned natives were not taken care of, so as the encirclement shrank later, many remains were left in the wilderness. From now on, this place can be regarded as a paradise for wild beasts. Advancing all the way, cleaning and driving all the way. In the end, when they encountered a tribe, they had not started to attack, and the other party had already abandoned the camp and fled. Even on the 8th and 9th days, a large number of empty camps appeared in front, and Zhang Wei and his men did not need to drive them away. The other party consciously fled to the center of the encirclement. The 10th day. It's time to launch a general attack. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Zhang Wei was still riding his beloved warhorse, standing on a high place, overlooking the battlefield. At this moment, all the soldiers of the guard camp have surrounded this large camp. The outermost is 350 light cavalrymen running around the battlefield to prevent the enemy from running out of the encirclement. The infantry, on the other hand, are divided into three directions facing the middle array, the first column in the north, the third column in the southeast, and the third column in the southwest. All are on full alert, waiting for the moment to launch the attack. The large tribe surrounded in the middle is also very agitated. Because of being driven away, this large tribe is now overcrowded. According to the intelligence collected, it is estimated that there are more than 2,000 young and strong natives. At this time, under the organization of this large tribe, they all gathered in this camp, in a mess, and there is not much heart to fight. This is the credit of Zhang Wei not ordering a complete extermination, letting the enemy know how terrible he is, and undermining the enemy's morale. Zhang Wei looked at the encirclement and said to Yushu, "Simmer, let the people from the intelligence bureau persuade them to surrender." In order to facilitate communication between the two parties, Yang Song asked Chen Ping to send several intelligence personnel who could speak the local language to support Zhang Wei. "Yes, I'll go now." As the second in command of the guard camp, Yushu had been trained on the battlefield for more than 10 days, and his face was already full of frost. Before joining the army, Yushu was a scholar. Although he joined the army and was reused, his body was still not as strong as these soldiers who had been trained for a long time. Soon, a rider rushed out from the back, ran to the turbulent crowd on the opposite side, and shouted loudly. The crowd on the opposite side looked at this devil who could speak their language. There was another commotion. After a while, a sturdy native walked out of the crowd on the opposite side, holding a thick stone stick, and also shouted to this side. one sentence on each side, shouting and communicating. Before a few words were exchanged, the sturdy native on the opposite side roared angrily and turned into the crowd. The intelligence officer sent to persuade them to surrender also rode back to Zhang Wei and reported to him. Captain Zhang, the other side is unwilling to surrender. They said that they have so many people and we are not their opponents with so few people. They also said that asking him to surrender is humiliating him. The other side is about to launch an attack. How do they actually want to launch the attack first? After hearing the report, Zhang Wei laughed and said, "You have worked hard. Go down and rest. It's our job next." Zhang Wei didn't expect the other side to surrender, and it was impossible for the other side to surrender. If he himself had nearly 3,000 warriors and the other side had only a little more than 1,000 people, he would not surrender. However, fighting and war are not about who has more people. Maybe in this wasteland, the idea that more people means more power is deeply rooted in people's hearts. And today, Zhang Wei will teach these southern barbarians and natives that having more people sometimes does not mean anything. Order. Infantry, speed up the pace of joining the main formation. Although the other two columns were not in the same direction as the main formation, they were not far away, because the camp was only this big, so they were only a few hundred meters away from the first column. Zhang Wei saw that the enemy's crowd gradually calmed down after a commotion, which was a sign of an upcoming attack. He then ordered, "Order. The light cavalry formation will gather in formation in the east of the battlefield and prepare to charge." Since the other side wanted to fight him head on, there was no need for the light cavalry who were preparing to defend against escape to patrol the periphery. Soon, the second column and the third column joined him and lined up on the left and right sides of the first column. At this time, the crowd on the opposite side began to attack with sticks, wooden spears, and stone spears amid a shout. Although he was not weak no matter what, seeing that the other side waited for him to finish lining up before launching an attack, Zhang Wei wanted to laugh a little. Stupid. Zhang Wei looked at this scene, said something in his mouth, and gave an order. Order. Beat the war drums. Deploy the defensive formation. Prepare the light cavalry formation to charge. The leader on the opposite side should be planning to wipe out his guard battalion in one breath. Zhang Wei looked at the attack from the opposite side. The group charge of nearly 3,000 people still looks spectacular. Order the long-range attack brigade. Once the enemy enters the range, don't be polite. Zhang Wei's order was issued. The rhythm of the war drums also changed, and the sound of the horn began to sound the attack. Coupled with the command of the flag, the officers and soldiers on the front line would not miss every order he issued. Simmer, notify me when the light cavalry formation is completed. Zhang Wei is now concentrating on the battlefield in front of him. He is afraid that he will not notice it. Yushu immediately clasped his fists and said, "Yes, battalion commander." Seeing the enemy getting closer and closer. 3 chapters today. It is recommended to add 1 more chapter. By the way, this is painful and happy. Chapter 77. The Power of Battle. Ready. Commands were given in almost no particular order in the 3 columns ahead. Crossbows, ready. Shoot. This time, a large group of crossbowmen and 108 crossbow arrows attacked together, which was much more spectacular than the firing of 36 crossbow arrows by a squadron. But compared to the crowd on the opposite side, these 108 crossbow arrows were too inconspicuous. They fell into the crowd without even a bubble and disappeared, as if this round of attack had no effect at all. If they hadn't noticed some natives standing in the front row falling to the ground, the soldiers of the guard camp would have thought that the previous attack was an illusion. Crossbows. Shoot. Bows and arrows. Projectiles. Another round of attacks fell on the crowd on the opposite side, which was a little closer. This round of attacks was much more effective than the previous one, because archers joined the attack sequence, so there were 108 more arrows. It was visible to the naked eye that there were many more gaps in the dense attacking crowd on the opposite side. The archers' firing rate is about twice that of the crossbowmen. When the archer squadron fired the 3rd volley, the crossbow squadron was ready for the 2nd volley. The dense crowd on the opposite side was getting closer and closer. When they stepped into the attack range of 100 meters, crossbow, free firing. The attack order of the crossbow was issued. There is no volley for the crossbow, just like a submachine gun. There is no way to command the volley in a unified manner. Although it is free firing, there is still an attack rhythm. But a round of continuous crossbow firing, the crossbow arrows made a trembling sound that shook the air while flying in the air. Wave after wave, continuous. The corpses on the opposite side fell to the ground in rows and piles, in all kinds of postures. At this time, the crossbowmen and archers completely became supporting roles. Compared with the crossbow arrows of the crossbow, the bustling arrows seemed so powerless. At a distance of 60 or 70 meters from the guard camp, there seemed to be an invisible iron wall, and no natives could cross that line. In less than 10 waves of attacks, the attack line, which was only more than 60 meters away from the first row of soldiers, was already full of corpses, forming a long mountain of corpses that was only 1 or 2 meters high. Unfortunately, there were still a few soldiers in the guard camp. The battle line composed of 3 columns was less than 200 meters horizontally. Zhang Wenyi watched the enemy coming around from both sides and gave an order. Light cavalry formation, prepare to attack. It turned out that just now, Yushu reminded him that the light cavalry formation had been lined up and was waiting for his order to attack. In fact, Zhang Wenyi also found out without Yushu's reminder, and asking his deputy to remind him was just an insurance. Order. Light cavalry attack the enemy formation and protect the 2 wings of our army formation. Yes. The messenger replied in a crisp and capable voice. The messenger turned around, facing the light cavalry formation in the east, waving the flag in his hand. Look. The battalion commander's order to attack has come down. Let's charge the enemy formation and protect our 2 wings. The leader of the light cavalry formation had been staring at the flag here for a long time, and he also saw the order issued by the flag through the telescope. Light cavalry formation. The leader shouted. All the officers and soldiers in the formation focused their attention. Order. The whole formation will be divided into 2 teams from behind the enemy and attack the enemies that are attacking our 2 wings. The leader finished the combat mission. He drew out his sword, swung it forward, and ordered. Blow the horn and attack. Woo woo. Go. Go. Accompanied by the sound of horns, the shouts of the imperial horses, and the neighing of war horses, the entire battle formation sprinted forward. As for how to divide into 2 teams, and who should command, there has been a plan for this. At this time, it is the best time to show the results of normal training. A battle formation or a formation of soldiers has a chief and deputy commander. When it is divided into 2 teams, the chief and deputy commanders will each command 1 team. The light cavalry formation first moved to the back of the enemy, that is, the south of the battlefield, and then began to charge at the enemy in the north. When charging, they were divided into a team on the left and a team on the right, each lined up in a long line, like 2 bloodthirsty pythons, attacking the edge of the battlefield. The charge of the light cavalry was very orderly. What they trained most was how to charge, and how to maneuver. Draw your sword. The chief and deputy commanders on the left and right sides basically issued the same order at the same time. At this time, the enemy had no time to take care of the enemy that suddenly appeared behind them. They were still driven by the tribal leader, and attacked the soldiers in front of them desperately. Da da da. A burst of dense horse hoof sound suddenly sounded from behind, and a native deep in the back of the battlefield turned his head in confusion. But he only saw a flash of knife light, and he found that his vision had turned upside down, and he also saw a headless, spraying something, familiar body standing upright on one side, and finally fell into endless darkness. The native didn't even see what the enemy looked like before he was beheaded by the light cavalry who charged past quickly. The whole process was so fast that he didn't feel any pain and ended his ignorant life. The 2 teams of light cavalry rushed through the formation in the blink of an eye, slashing and killing the outermost layer of enemies along the edge. Then they crossed behind the main army formation and launched an attack on the enemy's 2 wings again. The team of light cavalry that was originally in the east now appeared in the west, and the light cavalry that originally attacked the west now attacked the enemy in the east. The whole process of conversion and maneuvering was extremely smooth, without any pause. However, now they were facing the enemy, and the charge and attack were not as easy as before. At least the enemy on the opposite side already knew the direction of their attack. Even if the enemy knew the attack route of the light cavalry, it was not useless. Those who should be beheaded were still beheaded, those who should lose their arms would still lose them, and those who should die would still die. However, before the enemy died, he knew who killed him, and how he was killed. If they knew, they would die in pain and despair. The enemies who knew the truth didn't know whether they were lucky or unlucky. Charge after charge, attack after attack, the outermost enemies were like onions, being peeled off layer by layer. These assault groups composed of natives were full of confidence at the beginning, then they were full of trepidation, and then they were terrified. Now, they have turned into despair. They found that they had much more people on their side than the other side, so why couldn't they rush through? Moreover, as they rushed, the number of people on their side became fewer and fewer. These strangely dressed and neatly standing people on the opposite side clearly didn't take a step forward, but just moved their bodies, and something flew towards them, and then the people on their side fell down in groups. The natives wondered, isn't it still not within the distance of throwing spears? How can the other side attack so far? It was not easy to get around from both sides and get close. Just as they were about to throw spears, two teams of enemies riding strange beasts suddenly came out from behind. These enemies riding on wild beasts were even more brutal. They didn't even move their hands, but just rushed over horizontally with a strange, shining weapon. The people on their side were like weeds, being chopped to the ground layer by layer and row by row. Chapter 78 Post-War Meeting. The whole battle process was too short. Before these natives could react, the battle was basically over. A small number of enemies who came around from both sides rushed to the front of the battle formation. Looking at these natives who came around and approached desperately, the Malay soldiers handed out their weapons to the other side with expectations, excitement, and cruel expressions. Long spearmen. Raise your spear. Stab. Following the orders of the officers, the long spearmen raised their spears neatly, held their spears horizontally, pointed the spear tips at the enemy, obeyed the orders of the officers, took a neat step, and stabbed the long spears in their hands hard towards the enemy in front. The few enemies were immediately pierced through, and the weapons they held high became weak and limp. Their lifeless eyes, desperate faces, and limp bodies all accused the cruelty of war. The enemy's flying wooden spears, stone spears, and even flying stones had no effect at all in front of the fully protected soldiers. The final result of the battle was that only a few soldiers were hit by stones in the exposed parts and suffered minor injuries. In this battle, the Malay fighters were finally not just there to play soy sauce, and finally they would not be described by others as professional battlefield cleaners. When there were less than 100 frightened and stunned natives in the middle of the battlefield, Zhang Wei finally reacted. It was too fast. In a short period of time, nearly 3,000 natives on the opposite side were slaughtered. The speed of killing can only be described as slaughter. It was too easy, too fast. No matter whether it was himself or the enemy, he did not expect the battle to end so quickly. Zhang Wei came back to his senses, pulled the corner of his mouth, and didn't know what to say. He couldn't blame his warriors, he could only blame himself for not expecting these southern barbarians and natives to be so unbearable. Zhang Wei looked at the dozens of frightened natives surrounded by cavalry in the middle, thinking that this was a consolation prize. He still had a little tail to collect. That is, this tribe gathered all the natives within a radius of dozens of kilometers. In addition to the 3,000 people who went to the battle, there were at least 5,000 old, weak, women and children for him to deal with. This time, we can't deal with them simply and roughly like before, because there are too many people. Order. Surround the tribal camp opposite and let them come out to surrender. Zhang Wei ordered. He was going to let these old, weak, women and children come out to surrender first. Yes. The messenger immediately waved the flag and conveyed the order to the front. The remaining native light cavalry in front were surrounded by the commander's order, leaving behind the dozens of soulless natives in the encirclement, and quickly surrounded the camp. Then the intelligence officer who persuaded the surrender before the war stood in front of the camp again and began to persuade the natives inside to surrender. After a while, the gate of the camp opened wide, and a large group of natives of all sizes slowly walked out. The intelligence officer who persuaded the surrender rode to Zhang Wei on horseback and reported with a fist. Captain Zhang, I have fulfilled my mission. The Nanman has surrendered. Thank you for your hard work. Zhang Wei replied politely and turned around to give an order. Order the entire battalion to select Nunmen, regardless of gender, and select the strong ones, and escort them to the rear. The rest of the people will be locked up in the camp and strictly guarded. Yes, I will pass the order now, the messenger replied. Because such an order cannot be conveyed by a flag, the messenger can only pass it to the team. After seeing Zhang Wei give the order, Yushu suggested, "Battalion commander, should we report the situation here to the monarch and ask for instructions on how to deal with these remaining old and weak people?" You are right, it is possible that the monarch has other uses for these people. Zhang Wei thought about it and agreed to this suggestion. After cleaning up, let all the officers above the battalion captain come to the main tent for a meeting. After Zhang Wei gave instructions to Yushu, he rode back to the main tent of the rear camp to prepare for the next meeting. That night, in the main tent, the 13 main officers of the entire battalion gathered here again. Meet the battalion commander. Everyone clasped their fists and saluted together. Zhang Wei looked around and saw that, although these officers looked tired, there was still a little excitement between their eyebrows. Sit down, everyone. The meeting begins now. Zhang Wei didn't have the habit of talking nonsense, so he went straight to the point. The first phase of the operation is over. Now let's summarize the problems that occurred in this operation. Who will speak first? Everyone thought that their battalion commander would praise them, but they didn't expect that he would ask questions as soon as he opened his mouth. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing where to face it, and even more not knowing where to start. They were not prepared at all, so what could they say? After a while, everyone saw that Zhang Wei's face, which had originally been expressionless, actually collapsed, which surprised everyone. Qi-jun, the commander of the light cavalry formation, immediately stood up and clasped his fists to Zhang Wei and said, "Battalion commander, I will speak first." Zhang Wei looked at this subordinate. Although Qi-jun looked a little ugly, he was smart, quick to react, and brave in combat, so he nodded gently. Qi-jun, who was tall and strong with a full beard, saw that Zhang Wei's face had eased, and he praised his alertness in his heart and spoke first. "Captain, I think this battle is too slow. Keep going." Zhang Wei's face had completely returned to normal at this time. "Yes, I think this battle is a bit too cautious. It takes time and effort to move step by step, but there is not much result. We can speed up the cleaning. I'm done." Although Qi-jun doesn't look good, he speaks clearly. It's good to think so much in such a short time. Well, what else do others have to say? Zhang Wei neither nodded nor shook his head at Qi-jun's words, so that others couldn't guess what he said. Report to the battalion commander. I think when cleaning and expelling these small tribes, we can divide more teams and attack from more directions. If we encounter stubborn places, we can gather nearby teams to fight the enemy together. This was said by the leader of the Malay formation. With Qi-jun's beginning, the others also reacted and had more or less clues about what they wanted to say. "Captain, I think we killed too many people in battle and failed to complete the king's mission." This was said by the commander of the long-range attack formation. Although it was only a short sentence, it shocked everyone else. Yes, what about slow combat and combat tactics? In front of the king's order, these are all empty. Very good. Finally someone got to the point. Zhang Wei nodded with satisfaction and said seriously, "The king asked us to expel the southern barbarians and defend our country. Through the battles of these days, you should know that this is just a trivial matter." But, Zhang Wei deliberately emphasized, the king's second secret order is what we should pay attention to and do our best to complete it. Although the general is not subject to the king's orders when he is away, but that is a stopgap measure under specific circumstances. Now we have to think about how to complete this king's order. Zhang Wei finished the main reason for holding this meeting in one breath, then took a deep breath and said in a calm tone, "Tell me, what should we do to complete the king's order?" The third update is over. Chapter 79 Vortex Tactics. Captain, I have a suggestion. Seeing that he had not said the point just now, Qi-jun immediately stood up and said loudly with his fists clasped. After getting Zhang Wei's nod, he continued, "I suggest that the cavalry attack the Nanman crowd to disperse the Nanman crowd, divide the battlefield, and then the infantry will clear out and capture the enemies one by one. I think the light cavalry formation leader is wrong. The infantry should divide the enemy and then clear out and capture them, while the light cavalry can prevent the enemy from escaping or chase the fleeing enemy. The leader of the Malay formation heard that Ujun was going to make his people become helpers again and stood up with dissatisfaction on his face. For this reason, he deliberately pulled the long-range attack formation to his side in his words. When he made the suggestion, he emphasized the word light in the light cavalry, so that Ujun would know that your light cavalry should not charge the formation, as there would be great losses. Liu Yan, what you said is wrong. What's wrong with us being light cavalry? Can't light cavalry charge into the battle formation? Qi-jun argued with Liu Yan, the commander of the Malay formation. Liu Yan laughed, glanced at Qi-jun, and said softly, the Lord said to pay attention to the losses. If you do this, you are not afraid of too much loss, and you can't explain to the Lord. What are you doing? What kind of place is this? How can you be so presumptuous? Zhang Wei saw that the two were getting more and more excessive and roared. At this time, the two realized that they had gone too far and hurriedly bowed and saluted to apologize. I know I'm wrong. Please punish me, battalion commander. Zhang Wei ignored the two and turned to the commander of the long-range attack formation and said, Yan Ren, do you have any suggestions? Yan Ren, the commander of the long-range attack formation, was cautious and sharp-minded, but his personality was not suitable for being a soldier because he felt that he didn't care about anything. Yan Ren didn't say anything at this time. Anyway, all his men were responsible for long-range strikes and couldn't participate in these tactics. He thought, my people are only responsible for killing people, not arresting people. You guys fight for your own. But the battalion commander asked him to speak. If he said nothing, it would be too disrespectful to the battalion commander. He rolled his eyes and stood up and said, Battalion commander, I suggest that the whole battalion be divided into multiple teams, attacking from different directions at the same time. The cavalry will fill the gaps. Zhang Wei felt a little interesting at this time and said, Yan Ren, continue to talk about your ideas. He had no interest in the dispute between Qi-jun and Liu Yan. It was good to let the two of them have some competition, which showed that they were very motivated. As long as they grasped the right measure, this would be a good thing. Yes, battalion commander. Yan Ren, the leader of the long-range attack formation, clasped his fists and said, the whole battalion can be divided into 9 teams, led by the captains, and cleared from multiple directions. There is no need to set up an encirclement, just sweep from the outermost to the middle. When facing a large tribe in the end, the whole battalion should have gathered all its forces. His suggestion was inspired by Liu Yan's idea just now. Yan Ren finished his general idea, but he didn't explain how to divide the team, how to attack from several directions, how to communicate, and other details. Very good, Yan Ren. Among the three of you, you are the only one who makes me worry less. Zhang Wei usually doesn't praise his subordinates easily. This time, Qi-jun and Liu Yan went a little too far, so he used this method to remind them that it's useless to just argue, and only real and useful suggestions are the correct way to show yourself. Yan Ren smiled slightly when he heard the battalion commander praising him and didn't say much. He clasped his fists to Zhang Wei, then sat back in his seat and stopped talking. Zhang Wei looked at Yan Ren's performance, satisfied and a little helpless at the same time. He looked back at the other two, frowned slightly, and said, learn from Yan Ren, this demeanor of not being arrogant, and not being surprised by honor and disgrace, and then look at you two, what kind of words are you talking about? Yes, I know my crime. I will listen to the battalion commander's teachings. The two answered in unison at this time. After hearing the reprimand from the battalion commander, Qi-jun and Liu Yan were relieved. At least there was no other punishment this time. Let's divide the teams according to Yan Ren's suggestion. Zhang Wei agreed with Yan Ren's suggestion. He actually had some ideas, which were probably similar to what the three said. After hearing the suggestions and reasons of the three, he also tended to Yan Ren's tactic of dividing troops. But it's not divided into 9 teams, but into 10. Zhang Wei said the tactics that he had polished. Each team has about 100 people, and each team must have a close combat squadron, a long-range attack squadron and a cavalry squadron. Finally, I and the battalion headquarters will form the 10th team. The 10th team generally does not participate in combat, but is only used for central command. After Zhang Wei finished talking about the division of the teams, he continued to explain the tactics. 9 teams are divided into 9 directions. At the same time, they move inward in a clockwise direction outside the circle to carry out cleaning. When encountering a stubborn enemy, the adjacent teams can cooperate with each other. This cleaning tactic is like a whirlpool, moving towards the center at an angle with a certain slope. In this way, there will be no omissions, and it can also prevent the escaped natives from running around. I call this tactic the whirlpool tactic. Do you remember it? Especially you 9 captains. Zhang Wei gave this tactic a name, and at the same time, drew a marching route for the 9 teams on the map. After drawing, it was obvious that the 9 lines on the map formed a circular whirlpool. Everyone understood at a glance and knew what to do. It was very clear and concise, and said, "I obey your command." The tactics of each team are similar. Zhang Wei gave an example. A team has 3 squadrons, and each squadron has 3 squads. As for how to reorganize, it is available in the usual training, so I won't say more. I will only talk about the tactics of each team. After the squads are reorganized, the cavalry squadron of each team is responsible for protecting the 2 wings of the team, charging scouts, messengers, and chasing fleeing and scattered enemies. So the tasks of the soldiers in the light cavalry formation are very heavy. Zhang Wei explained this, looking at Qi-jun in a deep tone. There is no way to let the light cavalry soldiers have 4 legs. The faster you run, the more things you can do. I obey your command. I will let all the soldiers listen to the command of the captains of each team. Qi-jun hurriedly expressed his position, hoping to recover a little for his performance just now, and the points lost in the battalion commander's heart. Zhang Wei waved his hand to show that he understood, and then explained, each team has only 110 people. If you encounter a medium-sized tribe, you will need the support of 2 adjacent teams. I believe that a team of 330 soldiers is enough. If you receive support information from an adjacent team, the adjacent team must go as soon as possible without delay. Otherwise, military law will be applied. Zhang Wei was giving orders to everyone. I obey your orders. Everyone stood up, clasped their fists, bowed and saluted. Well, that's good to know. After seeing everyone accept the order, Zhang Wei continued, as for you captains, each of you will be responsible for commanding a major direction. Qi-jun is responsible for the east, Liu Yan is responsible for the south, Yan Ren is responsible for the west, and I will be personally responsible for the north. At the same time, you 3 must obey my command. Zhang Wei finally explained the entire procedure of this tactic, their respective responsibilities, the command system, and the most important young and healthy captives. Don't forget what we are here for. Chapter 80, Dividing the Prisoners of War. I obey your command. I will follow your command. Everyone said in unison again. Zhang Wei waved his hand, looked at everyone and asked, so, do you have any questions? If not, let's adjourn. Seeing that no one answered, Zhang Wei let everyone go. But he hadn't finished his work today yet. Sima, has the battle report been sent back? Zhang Wei asked Yushu, who had not left the tent. The first thing he and Yushu did, after returning to the main tent in the afternoon, was to write a battle report. Yes, I have sent someone to send it back to Qianqi City. Yushu replied, in less than 3 days, your majesty will be able to see our battle report. Zhang Wei and his men are now about 200 kilometers away from Qianqi City. With the speed of the war horses raised as system rewards, they can arrive in less than 3 days. If it weren't for the need to take care of the horsepower, and regardless of the life and death of the warhorse, it could run more than 100 kilometers a day, but if this was done, the warhorse would basically be useless. Sima, go and notify the people in the rear security bureau to come and receive the prisoners tomorrow. We can also take this opportunity to rest for a few days. Zhang Wei recalled the battle during the day when there were not many prisoners left. When he thought of the 10,000 southern barbarians imprisoned in the tribal camp, he felt annoyed. It was no problem for him to fight, but it was very difficult for him to guard these southern barbarians. This guarding job was really troublesome. Yang Song, who was in Qianqi City, also saw this battle. He was very surprised at the combat effectiveness of the guard camp. Although the other side was useless, such combat effectiveness was still enough to be called elite. As soon as the battle was over, Yang Song sent someone to find Yang Zhang, Chen Ping, and Chang Sansheng. Ladies and gentlemen, part of the battle in the south has ended, and a group of prisoners are being escorted, but there are still some old and weak people who don't know how to deal with them. Yang Song got straight to the point and asked directly. For the young and healthy prisoners, they had already discussed that the small islands overseas and the mines in the north were their best destinations. But these large numbers of old and weak people are a troublesome matter. It's easy to say when there are few people, just a few simple knives will do, but it's not easy to deal with a lot of people. Your Majesty, I need a group of young children. Chen Ping replied first. He didn't say how to deal with these old and weak people in the south, but said that he needed a group of young children. Okay. Go to Yang Ren to ask for as many as you want. Yang Song thought about it and agreed decisively. In fact, it's very simple. Chen Ping is doing intelligence work. He has been working hard for intelligence gathering in the north, which includes arranging a part of the dark room, but because of the difference between the two races, it's very painful. But now it's good. As long as there are these young children, they will be trained from childhood, and there will be no shortage of talents in this area in the future. As for the issue of loyalty, is this a problem? Brainwashing and training from childhood are just trivial matters. The only regret is that it takes a long time. Your Majesty, I have a suggestion, but I don't know if I should say it. Chang Sansheng said hesitantly, after seeing Chen Ping finish his request. Yang Song didn't think much and said directly, is there anything I should or shouldn't say? Just say it, if you have something to say. Yes, I obey your order. As if Chang Sansheng wanted Yang Song to say this, he accepted the order and said, in fact, this is also Director Chen's job. I'm just suggesting it. There are 3 places in the world where it is easiest to get information. One is the bright lights and flower buildings, the second is the taverns and tea houses, and the third is the peddlers. Unexpectedly, Chang Sansheng actually talked about how to get information. Isn't this stealing Chen Ping's job? Yang Song frowned and said a little worriedly, what do you want to say? Your Majesty, I just think that those young women and the southern barbarians can also be useful. Chang Sansheng said a little helplessly. He thought to himself, didn't you ask us to give you advice? Am I not obeying your order and giving advice? Think about it. Chang Sansheng is a diplomat, and it shouldn't be his business to deal with these captives. But Yang Song asked him to come and let him give advice, so he can only give advice from the aspect of intelligence. At least he had gone abroad and got some intelligence back, so he could only make suggestions from this aspect. Yang Zhang also continued, let's not talk about the old, weak, sick and disabled Nanman natives. They are useless, but young and strong women are still very useful. These strong women can also be used to mine. Director Changson is right. The intelligence bureau still needs some young boys and girls. After training, they can still play a big role. Chen Ping also agreed with Chang Sansheng's suggestion at this time. Chen Ping did not complain about Chang Sansheng's suggestion to take his job. In private, the relationship between the two was still okay, and he also knew that the current few people were all in secret talks, so they could be let go. Yang Song listened to several people, one suggestion per person, and soon decided on the fate of the Nanman. He mourned for these natives who were about to contribute to the Xia kingdom for a few seconds in his heart. Now, in the eyes of several people including Yang Song, these people are just a piece of meat, and they will soon be divided up, which will make these old and weak people who are not very useful in the eyes of ordinary people squeeze out their last bit of value for their own interests. For the mineral resources on the island and to speed up the development of Xiaguo, some places need people to complete the work. That requires a lot of labor, and the number of people in Xiaguo is not enough. There is no way. Yang Song and his team can only look at the local natives. Simple work like mining does not require any knowledge or brains. As long as you can understand the words and have physical strength, you can complete the work. They believe that these natives will complete it very well. So this war is far from as simple as it is advertised to the domestic people, but it is not too complicated. It's just that some reasons are not easy to say openly. Okay, Gilly-Ma sent someone to inform them that Zhang Wenyi should not easily abandon Xiaoguo's property. After Yang Song finished speaking, he laughed twice. Therefore, with Yang Song's small map, the implementation of this plan can save a few days. When Zhang Wenyi received the order from Yang Song, he was still confused. Why did the follow-up order come so quickly? Didn't the battle report he sent back just arrive in Cheyenne Key City? But he immediately stopped thinking about this question. Anyway, he knew that the monarch's magical powers were great. No matter how much you think, it will not help you. Sima. Take a look at this king's order. Zhang Wenyi handed the order that had just been received to Yushu, who came to inquire. Yushu took it with both hands and read it carefully. After a while, he handed the letter to Zhang Wenyi and said, "I will obey your order." Zhang Wenyi also took the order with both hands and then instructed Yushu, "Okay, then you go and let the soldiers execute the order. Select them again and divide them according to this order." "Yes, I'll go right away." Yushu turned around and left the main account without saying a word to execute the order. He wanted to distinguish these captives again. In addition to the original young and strong, he now has to select strong women and send them back to mine together. Then select young boys, girls, and children and keep them separately so that the militia of the Habeo Bureau can escort them conveniently. As for the remaining old, weak, sick and disabled, don't blame them for being cruel. Chapter 81 New Battlefield. Under military orders, the guard camp carefully identified more than 5,000 southern barbarians, and it took less than a day to complete. In addition to nearly 100 captives, the biggest harvest this time was the selection of more than 3,000 strong women who could be used for mining. The second was nearly 1,000 young children, nearly 500 indigenous girls, and nearly 500 boys. There were also hundreds of old, weak, sick and disabled people left. These indigenous people were either old and weak, or had injuries, or were babies who were too young to walk. Many of the disabled were newly injured, which should have been caused by the guard camp's expulsion and cleaning operations some time ago. After such a distinction, I didn't expect that there were still 4 or 5,000 indigenous people who could be used, but there were very few who could not be used. This really maximized the use of resources. The next day, Yang Ren personally led 3,000 militiamen to this place and escorted these indigenous people back while delivering supplies. Director Yang. After this supply, our camp will set out again. I hope that the logistics supply can keep up by then. Zhang Wenyi and Yang Ren stood on a high slope, looking at the busy militia on one side and thick black smoke on the other side, chatting. Yang Ren also looked at the crowd below, and with the help of the soldiers of the guard camp, he forced the crowds to separate. The camp below was full of crying and shouting. "Don't worry, Captain Zhang, the food I sent this time is enough for you to use for a while. As long as these laborers are escorted to various places, I will supply you as soon as possible." "That's the best." Zhang Wenyi asked a little worriedly. "Director Yang, do you think we will be in the same situation one day?" Ha ha ha. Yang Ren laughed after hearing this and said, "Don't you still have you? The future of Xiaoguo still depends on you warriors to guard it." Zhang Wenyi heard Yang Ren's answer, did not say anything, but secretly clenched his fists and made a promise in his heart. A few hours later, except for the old, weak, sick and disabled, all other natives set off to return to China under the escort of the militia. Zhang Wenyi looked at the hundreds of natives left in the camp, waved his hand, and the soldiers waiting on the side threw the torches in their hands into the camp. The raging flames raged throughout the camp, and the sound of crying filled his ears. Zhang Wenyi faced the camp like this, staring at the tragedy in the camp. He forced himself to watch. He wanted to warn himself that, if he didn't win, then this would be the portrayal of the people of Zaire in the future. Until there was no more sound, he turned over and rode on his warhorse and led his troops to the next target without looking back. Battalion commander, the scouts in front, reported that they had found a place suitable for camping. Yushu took the letter handed over by the messenger and interpreted it to Zhang Wenyi, who was checking the map. "Okay, camp here tonight and prepare to set up a prisoner of war concentration camp tomorrow." Zhang Wenyi didn't even raise his head, looked at the terrain in front of him on the map, and gave Yushu an instruction. He was just thinking that the people in the rear security bureau were busy escorting the natives, and there were no extra people to help him escort the prisoners of war here. A few days ago, Yang Ren came here to discuss the management of prisoners of war, and finally decided to build a prisoner of war concentration camp. So tomorrow he is going to build a prisoner of war concentration camp in this place, and when Yang Ren and his team have spare manpower, they will slowly escort them back to the country. As for the custody problem, there are still 1,000 militiamen. As for the food problem of the indigenous people, as long as these people are not starved to death, it will be fine. Yes, I will let the militiamen get ready. Yushu replied. He would make arrangements. The 1,000 militiamen have been following the guard camp and are helping them transport food and supplies. Another reason for building a prisoner of war concentration camp is that it is impossible to carry so many supplies with you during the battle, so a logistics supply station is needed. The next day, Zhang Wei asked all the soldiers in the camp to have breakfast and then helped the 1,000 militiamen build a supply station and a prisoner of war concentration camp. With the labor of more than 2,000 people, a camp that is large enough, strong enough, and simple enough was soon built. There is only a wall outside the camp to separate the supply station. The supply station needs to be built more carefully, and attention should be paid to moisture-proof and waterproof. Battalion Commander, the preparations have been completed, and the target is ahead. I wonder when we will start the action? Yushu was asking Zhang Wei about his next plan. He was responsible for managing many things in the guard camp, and he could make arrangements in advance after asking him clearly. Zhang Wei replied, we will stay for another day tomorrow to make preparations, and we will officially set off the day after tomorrow. The preparation work is to form a team while resting, and even after the formation is completed, we have to wait until all the teams have arrived at the designated positions before we can take action. Therefore, there should be 2 days before the moment this action begins. The next day, the whole camp became lively. The formation of the team was based on the squadron, which was disrupted and reorganized to try to ensure that the combat power of each squadron was the same. In addition to the battalion headquarters directly under Zhang Wei, the entire battalion had a total of 81 squadrons, and then 9 squadrons were reorganized in the form of long-range attack squadrons, close combat squadrons, and cavalry squadrons. On the third day, it took a whole day for each team to successfully reach their respective positions under the command of the team leader, and surrounded the tribe group centered on the large tribe B from all directions. On the fourth day, which is today, whether the vortex tactics are useful or not depends on future performance. Time is up. Order. The northern team begins to move. Zhang Wei looked at the sky and saw that the time had reached the scheduled time, so he decisively ordered the entire army to attack. In the other 3 directions, the team leaders of the 3 military formations also issued attack orders at the same time. When all the teams were dispatched, this peaceful wasteland was like 9 stones thrown into the calm water surface, and waves appeared. It could not stop for a long time, but there was an increasingly fierce call. On that day, the 9 teams of the entire guard camp had no enemies against the natives they encountered, and successfully cleared a large circle of peripheral tribes, and captured more than 3,000 prisoners. At the same time, the distance between each team was also greatly reduced. The task of escorting these prisoners fell on the militia, so throughout the day, these 1,000 militia were busier than the 9 teams. It was not until the end of a day's battle that Zhang Wei received feedback from the militia. A militia of 1,000 people now had to guard the prisoners, and they would not be able to take on such a heavy escort task next. Because there were too many prisoners, these were the ones who were selected, otherwise there would be more. As for the rest, their fate would be just like their tribe, vanishing into thin air. After receiving the feedback, Zhang Wei thought about it carefully and weighed the pros and cons, and ordered, the cleaning task will be carried out every other day, and the day in between will be used to help escort the prisoners. There is nothing that can be done about it. It's better to be slow than to make a mistake. Besides, Yang Song didn't stipulate that the task must be completed within a certain number of days. Without the deadline, Zhang Wei can use tactics more flexibly. 4 more chapters are on the shelves. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Logistics Supply. Since Wanda repaired the Northern Passage, he has become an ordinary worker again. He pours molten iron into the mold on the assembly line every day. To be honest, this job does not require any skills at all. You just need to pick up the mold, pour the molten iron and put it aside. That's it. Just 3 steps. Fortunately, Wanda thinks he is an honest man with a simple job with a good salary. The most important thing is that he is working for the Lord. No, he should be working directly for the monarch. For him, this is a great honor, and it is very face-saving to talk about it. On this day, the monarch issued another conscription order to recruit more than 2,000 militiamen. Wanda said nothing and directly signed up for the person in charge of militia management in the arsenal. Foreman, I'm here to sign up. Wanda shouted directly to the person in charge. The person in charge of managing the factory militia is also the foreman of this arsenal. Because there are many militiamen in the arsenal, and it is a direct unit of the monarch, a separate management department was set up. The foreman's surname is Lee. He is a man in his 40s. Before coming here, he was a soldier and a junior officer. Later, because of his old age and inconvenient legs and feet, he came here to be a foreman. Foreman Lee smiled and said to Wanda, "Oh, so active. Okay, I will fill in your name now." Foreman Lee, that's for sure. My wife has taken a fancy to another piece of furniture and is clamoring for me to buy it, but the salary from the factory is not enough. Wanda complained to Foreman Lee helplessly. His wife is good in everything, but she can't stand seeing others have good things. As long as she can buy what other families have, she must buy it. Really? Go back and talk to her. She has to compare everything. Can you stand it? Foreman Lee filled in Wanda's name and looked up to chat. Wanda smiled and said, "It's okay, I can still stand it. It's just that my wallet can't stand it." Haha. You kid, are you joining the militia to earn subsidies this time? Foreman Lee asked. Wanda replied proudly, "That's right, without the subsidy, how can my son buy paper and pens, and how can my wife have flowered cloth?" Foreman Lee said with a little envy, "It's good to be young, but it's a pity that The rest of the words were not said aloud, or something. Anyway, Wanda was thinking about how to get this opportunity. Because in his opinion, not too many militiamen were needed this time, only more than 2,000 people, and there must be a lot of people participating. Anyway, there is extra money and less danger. Wanda, did you go to listen to the propaganda? This time we are going to kill savages. It may be dangerous. It is different from the previous road construction. Foreman Lee reminded Wanda, fearing that this kid would lose his life for a little money. Wanda patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, Foreman Lee, I know. I have also been trained. If I meet a savage, I will kill him one by one. Besides, there are people in front of us. We are only responsible for transporting food and escorting prisoners." Foreman Lee saw that Wanda was very clear about the nature of this mission, so he didn't say much. He just mentioned that, since the militia under his management had been in the limelight, he would also be rewarded. Wanda returned home and told his wife about the mission. Under the other party's concerns and expectations, he soon received the order to be recruited. In the south of the city, he stood in his team according to the instructions. Unfortunately, he was no longer the captain this time, but just a soldier. He was given a short knife. According to the usual training method, he tied the short knife around his waist and looked around. After a while, under the leadership of the captain, he came to the storage area in the southeast corner of the city. According to the instructions, he opened the military grain warehouse and moved bags of grain from the warehouse to the carriage. Each bag of grain weighs 100 kilograms, and each carriage can hold 20 bags, which means that each 2-horse, double-axle, 4-wheeled carriage can carry 2 tons of grain. Wanda's team has 100 people and 5 carriages, and every 20 people are responsible for loading and unloading a carriage. Soon, his team filled 5 carriages and made room for the carriages behind to continue loading, and his team has already set off to the south. But not all teams have carriages, only the transport team has carriages, and there are only 10 transport teams, which means 50 carriages. Fortunately, during this period, dozens of new carriages were built in the country for transportation to the north, otherwise, they could only carry these supplies on their backs. The rest of the militia were issued swords, shields, or spears, but no armor. These militias with better weapons are here to guard the 10 transport teams. And not all carriages are used to load grain. In fact, only half of the carriages are used to transport grain, and the rest are all used to load weapons and equipment. Most of the 25 carriages loaded with weapons and equipment were loaded with crossbows for strong crossbowmen, arrows for archers, short crossbows for crossbowmen, and a small number of replacement parts. Other carriages were loaded with medical supplies such as gold wound medicine and gauze. Some carriages were loaded with daily necessities, and some. Captain, with so many carriages carrying so much food, this trip will be enough for them to eat for a long time, right? Wanda asked the captain in front of him during the transportation, and this captain was a member of the Rear Protection Bureau. It won't last long. 1 cart of food is probably only enough for the soldiers in front for 2 days. You can calculate, there are 25 carts of food, and we will also consume it on the road. Just more than 3,000 people will probably eat 1.5 carts a day, and 3 carts in 2 days. We will have to eat 3 more carts of food when we go back, and there are only 19 carts left. Tell me, how long will these 19 carts of food last for them? The captain calculated to Wanda. Captain, 19 carts are enough for the soldiers in front to eat for more than a month. Wanda asked in confusion, shouldn't it be eaten for a long time? Why can't it be eaten for a long time? Haha, you don't know, aren't we transporting prisoners? A lot of food is prepared for these prisoners. Only then did the captain tell the reason. Wanda was confused. How many prisoners would there be at this time? So much food would not be enough to eat for a long time. The captain did not answer him this question, because the captain did not know how many prisoners there were. In this way, it depends on the soldiers fighting in front. With this question, Wanda followed the convoy all the way south steadily. After 2 days, he saw the soldiers in front, who were preparing for action. A group of cavalrymen galloped to the south, and they transported the food to the designated location, and began to unload the car. After unloading the carriage, they could take turns to sit in the carriage to go back. A day and a half later, Wanda and his transport team returned to Cheyenne City, and then loaded the car again, or loaded food, and after loading the food, they began to transport it to the south without stopping. This time, they were urged to hurry up, as if the war had already started in the south, so they should transport the food to the destination quickly and not delay the soldiers' stomachs. Compared with the last trip, this time they had to travel 1 more day, and they had to consume several more carts of food on the road. Soon, they arrived at the rear of the battlefield. After they unloaded the food supplies, they were not allowed to go back immediately, but waited for another day. At first, Wanda was still wondering what was going on, but before a day had passed, an order came from above, asking them to go to the front line. Chapter 83, Transporting Prisoners. When the militia heard that they were going to the front line, they panicked. Don't panic. We are not going to the front line to fight, but to escort prisoners. Seeing the panic of the militia, the manager of the Rear Security Bureau came out to explain to everyone. Although everyone is called soldiers, there is also a civilian in front. Although they have been trained, they have also thought about becoming famous on the battlefield. But that was just a thought. When they really encountered it, they were still very panicked. Only a small number of militias were eager to try, but they were a little disappointed when they heard that they were just escorting prisoners. Wanda was a little interested when he heard that they were just escorting prisoners. He had not seen these savages with his own eyes. Under the captain's shouting, the militia returned to their respective teams and followed the people in front, forming a long snake formation and heading towards the battlefield further south. Under the leadership of the captain, teams of militia teams went in different directions, and Wanda's team was the same. Okay, the prisoners we are escorting are not far ahead. The captain turned and said loudly to the 100 militiamen, "Be careful. If you encounter unruly savages, teach them a lesson. Just be careful not to kill them. It was the first time for Wanda to come to such a dangerous place. He was nervous all the way. When he heard the captain's reminder, he swallowed his saliva and touched the short knife on his waist to see if it was still there. He turned his head and looked at the others and found that everyone's performance was similar. Even those who were still expecting and excited just now were now nervous. Don't worry, these savages have been tied up and can't do anything. The captain was still comforting everyone. The captain's comfort was still very effective. When everyone heard that the savages were tied up, they felt relieved. Not long after, they turned over a small hill and saw a lot of people gathered on a wide ground. When they got closer, they realized that these were the savages they needed to escort. From the guards, they learned that these savages, or the natives in the soldiers' mouths, were very stupid. Seeing these brave warriors, they actually wanted to resist, which was simply to die. Look, there are only so few people left, and the others are all dead. Wanda heard the conversation between the soldier and the captain, and then looked at the savages squatting together. They were all tied together with ropes, and connected in a string. He roughly counted them. There were only dozens of savages here. When he saw that the number of their militiamen was more than that of the savages, he was relieved. No matter where it is, the advantage of numbers is still very important, although sometimes this view is not accurate. Come on, everyone, take these natives back. After the captain handed over to the soldiers, he waved his hand to let the militiamen drive these natives away. Get up, go, go. Hurry up. The militiamen took their weapons and shouted at these natives, regardless of whether others could hear or not. Anyway, shouting loudly is also good to give yourself courage. When the militiamen came, these natives looked at them with horror. These natives did not expect that there were so many demons, and shouted at them incomprehensible words. Fortunately, the natives also understood from the actions of the militiamen, and hurriedly stood up, followed the instructions, and staggered towards the north. Seeing these savages so obedient, the militiamen shouted even louder and excitedly drove the natives away one by one. Wanda looked at the obedient savages, carefully walked up to one of them, and looked at him carefully. The age of this savage could not be seen. He should be an adult, with a full beard and messy hair, and he was quite strong, half a head taller than him. Ahem, what is this smell? Suddenly a strange smell came towards him, almost making him faint. Wanda covered his nose, turned around and ran to an open area, took a few deep breaths, and then eased up. Haha. Seeing Wanda's appearance, the others couldn't help laughing. But they didn't notice that the distance between them and these savages had unknowingly widened a little. Guarding these natives was a squad of melee soldiers. The team leader looked at this scene and laughed. You don't know, I heard that these natives never take a bath. You'd better stay away from them. Haha. Oh my god. Never take a bath. How do these people survive? I'd better stay away from them. After hearing the team leader's words, the militiamen talked about it, and everyone stepped away. Wanda was very upset when he heard that these savages never took a bath. Why didn't the team leader say it earlier? He probably couldn't forget this taste for a long time in the future. After laughing and talking, the militiamen all secretly reminded themselves that they should go to the public bathhouse to take a bath frequently in the future. They didn't want to become someone who no one wanted to approach them in the future. Okay, get to work. The captain urged the militia, turned around and bowed to the team leader and said, the handover is completed. We will return now. You should be more careful in front. Although everyone didn't know each other, they were all from Zaya country, and it was necessary to care about each other. Thank you. I have to go back to the camp now. Bye. The team clasped their fists and saluted in return. Wanda and his team met up with other teams escorting prisoners that day. After 3 days of easy escort and eating a few carts of food, they returned to Cheyenne Key City. That afternoon, they did not enter the city, but bypassed Cheyenne Key City. Wanda looked at the team and asked the captain curiously, Captain, where are we going if we don't enter the city? The captain looked at Cheyenne Key City, then looked at the prisoners being escorted, and then turned to explain to him, we don't enter the city. We will directly send these savages to the mines and let them mine. I see. This is a punishment for them. Let them work hard. Wanda thought he had found the reason. The real situation was actually similar to what he thought, except that one was a passive punishment and the other was an active punishment. And escorting these natives directly to the industrial town in the northwest, in addition to not disturbing the people, the mining area was already prepared to receive these natives. All the miners in the industrial town came out of the mines. Some became militiamen, and some entered the industrial town, and became workers in various factories. Now, the productivity of the industrial town can be greatly improved. At least there are enough people to mine and smelt iron ore, and the iron smelting furnace can be fully started. It is expected that the production of steel will double next month, all because of enough manpower. In this way, there is a small loophole in the production chain of Xiago. That is, these natives can mine enough, or on time and in quantity. Yang Song discussed this matter with a few of them again, and finally decided to use food as an incentive to stimulate these natives to mine ore. Chapter 84, Post-War Battlefield. To put it simply, the more ore you mine, the more food you get. Without ore, there will be no food. Yang Zhang, tell me, in this way, can the resources on the island be developed? After Yang Song finished discussing with several people, he suddenly remembered the treasures overseas, so he asked directly. There will be more and more of these natives, and overseas resources should be able to be mined, right? Yang Zhang also thought of it, and bowed to Yang Song and said, Your Majesty is right, but in this way, the fleet led by Li Bao can only stay in the military port. Yang Song nodded, thinking that there were only a few warships in his family, which could not be used to transport these natives, so the remaining ones were the 2 transport ships that were about to be completed. Once these 2 ships were completed, Li Bao's fleet could continue to explore northward and open up the sea route. But the resources on the island made him jealous, especially the guano island, which could be used to make gunpowder. But there were only 2 ships, and it was impossible to take care of both ends. This was really a dilemma. Your Majesty, in fact, opening up the sea route is far less important than developing resources. This is Chen Yu, a subordinate of Shen Kuo, who is responsible for improving agriculture. There are still many people coming to this meeting, except for the administrative officials under Yang Zhang and Li Zi, Yang Ren and others who could not attend. Chen Yu continued, the crops grown by the people of Xia State have always been grown with farmyard manure. Without fertilizer, the grain yield is not very ideal. I have been studying and found that bad droppings can be sealed and fermented to become excellent fertilizers. Yang Song was shocked. He did not expect that bad droppings could be used as fertilizers. He asked quickly, is the production process difficult? How much does it increase the grain yield? Replying to Your Majesty, bird droppings can be fermented and become excellent fertilizers in a closed state for 1 to 3 months. However, if the fermentation is not sufficient, it is easy to attract pests such as cutworms and grubs when applied to the substrate. As for how much the yield will increase, Chen Yu thought for a while and said, it's hard to say now. Only after the test can we know how many levels the yield can be increased. He was afraid that Yang Song did not know the benefits of fertilizers, and then explained, but according to my estimation, the yield will increase by at least 3 levels. At least 3 levels? Doesn't that mean that there will be 3 more people to be recruited? The development speed of Xia State will also increase by at least 3 levels? Yang Song secretly calculated that he had no choice but to choose to develop the island. Okay, I've decided to develop Guano Island first. Yang Song made the decision directly. Let the shipyard speed up the construction, don't add some unnecessary things, and complete the construction as soon as possible. Yang Song ordered Yang Zhang, the next batch of prisoners will be escorted to the navy town and sent to Guano Island as soon as possible. Yes, I obey your order. Yang Zhang bowed and accepted the order. Yang Song then ordered, add 1,000 militiamen and send them to the southern front. The first large-scale battle in the south is about to begin. By then, there will be more prisoners. Wang Da took the prisoners to the mine in the industrial town and handed them over to the militia here. After returning home to rest for 2 days, he followed the captain to the granary to transport grain again. There were more people setting off this time. It seemed that 1,000 militiamen were newly mobilized, and 10 more carts of military rations were transported. because I heard that there were too many prisoners. They needed to escort the prisoners with all their strength, which resulted in the inability to transport food for a period of time. Starting from Cheyenne Key City, we walked south for 4 days, and the 4th day's journey was the longest journey Wang Da had ever walked. After crossing an invisible boundary, along the way, we could see burned camps and scattered corpses scattered throughout the wilderness from time to time. Some of these corpses were already unrecognizable. Looking at the scattered traces of being eaten, the bloody limbs and arms, and the bursts of fishy smell from time to time, Wang Da vomited, and vomited so hard that the world was turned upside down, and the sky was dark. Not only him, but everyone else basically vomited, and in the end, they couldn't vomit anything, and they would retch. Everyone was listless, their hands and feet were weak, and they couldn't walk. The last section of the journey, that should not have taken half a day, was taken by them for a whole day. I got used to vomiting, and it was nothing to look at. I can only say that people are really adaptable. Wang Da felt that he had changed so much. He used to kill chickens and ducks at most, but now he could be indifferent to these corpses. He was a little scared. Finally, he arrived at the destination before dark. It was too dark, and he couldn't see too far, but there was a very strong smell of blood, which made him very confused. Wang Da saw some injured soldiers in the camp. This was the first time he saw a soldier injured. He had never seen it before. It seemed that the battle this time was a bit fierce. The next day, as soon as it was light, there were a few screams outside the tent from time to time, waking up Wang Da, who had not slept well. He came outside the open tent and saw some people standing in the distance, looking down, motionless. The camp was all stationed on the hillside, a little distance away from the battlefield. Now he couldn't see the hillside below in the camp. He didn't know what these militiamen saw, and were so surprised. Wang Da stepped forward quickly and got out of a gap. Looking at the stunned expressions of these militiamen, he was even more curious and turned to look down the hillside. At this moment, Wang Da's expression was no different from that of others, and he unconsciously shouted, "Oh my god." What did he see? Wang Da didn't know how to describe the scene he saw. What on earth was that pile of small hills? He really didn't want to see such a scene. He really hoped that all this was an illusion. Everything he saw left him with a serious psychological shadow. If he couldn't get out of this psychological shadow, his future life would be full of tragedy. Gradually, he didn't know how long it had been, until the sun rose high and shone a piece of light on him. The warm temperature of the sun slowly brought him back to his senses. "What are you doing? Don't you want to eat breakfast? Eat quickly, so you can work after eating." A loud shout came from behind, and an unknown person was yelling at them at the gate of the camp. When they heard the word eat, some people recalled the white and red things on the corpses, eaten by wild beasts yesterday, and then smelled the bloody smell in the sky, and looked around, as if the whole world was filled with a trace of scarlet. He couldn't help it any longer, and started vomiting again. When one person vomited, it was like a lit gunpowder barrel, and everyone else followed suit. But he didn't eat anything yesterday, so how could he vomit now? Even bile and gastric juice couldn't come out. Wang Da thought that, after what happened yesterday, there was nothing that could make him vomit again, but now he was just like everyone else, bending over, supporting his knees with one hand, pressing his chest with the other, retching, and the pain from his body made the tears in his eyes flow uncontrollably. But after vomiting like this, and feeling the pain in his body, Wang Da felt that he was still alive. Although it was painful, it was better than becoming a member of the hill behind him. But if he were to look back again, he really didn't dare to look. Thinking of the strange shaped limbs that were white and black, the black and red liquid that flowed out of the hill and filled the hillside, and smelling the ubiquitous and extremely fishy smell, he retched even harder. The 4th update is over. Chapter 85, Appeasing the People. Fortunately, they didn't need to deal with the disgusting hill. They were only responsible for selecting and escorting prisoners. In a burst of billowing smoke, the hill gradually lost its original appearance. Only then did Wang Da and his men dare to take in the scene in that direction. Wang Da followed the team to the camp below and saw many kinds of savages, old and young, all kinds of people. It was not easy to separate these prisoners according to the order, but the noisy and incomprehensible voices of the other party really annoyed him. Wanda finally lifted a little girl out of the arms of an old savage, and the other party seemed to pounce on him, so he kicked him immediately. He didn't want to do this, but the superiors above had given orders, and he could only obey orders. They were also soldiers now. They had to obey orders. In the end, he could only comfort himself and say to himself that these were all savages. The superior said that these savages were originally prepared to rob their food and kill them. They just came first. Even so, he knew it was right to do so, but he still felt bad. Perhaps he was afraid that one day he would become like these savages in front of him, just as helpless and desperate. After most of the day, some of Wang Dao and his militiamen became numb like him, while others became even more aggressive, forcing distinctions with ferocious faces and beating people up if they were not satisfied. In addition to loading the children into the car and taking them away, all the other savages were tied up according to their classifications, tied up in a long string, and escorted to the north. Wang Da looked back at the old, weak, sick and disabled people who were left in the camp, and he had a premonition. He didn't dare to look or think about it anymore, and turned around and continued on his way. 4 days later, Wang Da took the captives through Mushao Town and arrived behind Mushao Town. Along the way, people came to watch these captives from time to time, very curious. However, whether it was these native savages or the unpleasant smell on Wang Da and his men, these people could only watch from a distance and dared not come forward. After they arrived at a place, the carriage loaded with young children changed direction and went in a different direction under the leadership of another team, and the very young captives followed. The remaining were all strong captives, led by various captains, following the official road and heading east. Now Wang Da no longer had the energy to inquire about anything. He just wanted to complete the task, go home, take a good bath, and sleep soundly. That night, they finally arrived at their destination, Navy Town. Wang Da originally thought that he should be able to go home and rest, but he didn't expect that the captain didn't let them go at all. Instead, he gathered them in the parade ground in the barracks of the naval port. Everyone, I know you are all tired. You have seen so many things you don't want to see. Whether it is physically or mentally, you are very tired. An unknown person stood on the high platform and spoke loudly to them. You don't need to know who I am. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is you. The Lord cares about you. He is afraid that you will be upset, so he sent me to enlighten you. The man held a tin horn and directly explained his purpose. When the militia heard that it was the Lord who cared about them, they were very excited. Quiet, be quiet. The man comforted everyone and said loudly, don't you want to listen to what the Lord said to you? When everyone heard that the Lord had something to say to them, they immediately quieted down and stared at the person on the stage. The man on the stage clasped his fists towards the west and said, the king asked me to bring you a message. The king tells you, the people of Za, thank you for your hard work. For the future of Za, you have suffered this hardship. Za will remember your contributions. I will also remember your contributions. The king has decided to award you a collective third-class military merit. This is what the king said to you. You must remember the king's kindness, and the king's kindness is not so easy to enjoy. Therefore, you have to return to the south, to the front line, and continue your mission. The man looked at the more than 2,000 people who were excited and continued to preach loudly. I sympathize with your experience, but for the sake of your family and your friends, you should go even more. Because if you don't go, someone has to go, so someone else has to go. You don't want your family and friends to see that scene, do you? The visitor shouted loudly, you want your family to see that scene? No. Yes, I don't want my father to go anyway. My father is also a militiaman. Yes, my son seems to have just gone through militia training. My brother is the same. I don't want him to see those things. Because all people are soldiers, as long as adult men have to go through military training. So everyone has relatives and friends who are militiamen. Then I can only trouble you. The visitor said immediately after seeing that everyone agreed with his opinion. You have gone through an experience. You should not be afraid anymore, right? Are there any of you who are afraid of those things now? This is provoking. First, appeasement, then the king gives grace, then reasoning, and now provocation again. The visitor is not afraid that these militiamen will not cooperate. Also, even if you go back, you have to keep it secret. You don't want your family and friends to worry about you, do you? This person asked them to keep it secret. Although it is impossible to completely conceal it from the people, as long as the impact is reduced and there is no chaos, it will be fine. Coupled with the propaganda guidance of the propaganda department, the influence of this matter can be minimized. That night, Wanda and other militiamen rested in the military camp of the military port and took turns to guard these prisoners. Although these savages can't make much waves in the military camp, they still have to be vigilant to prevent any eventuality. On the other side, a few hours ago, in the Xianqi City Council Hall, Yang Song summoned Yang Ren and Yang Zhang. Yang Ren, these militiamen need to be appeased. You go and appease them. Don't make any trouble. The reason why Yang Song said this is because he saw that the public sentiment of thousands of people was declining in the public sentiment of the system. For several years, the public sentiment value has been shown to be above good, which made him almost forget the public sentiment option. But this time something like this happened, and it actually declined for the first time, which scared him. Yes, I obey your command. Yang Ren also knew that the people needed to be appeased. Without the support of these people, many things would be difficult to handle, and there might really be trouble. Yang Zhang, you should give some comfort to these militiamen in terms of materials, to let them know the sincerity of the country. Again, verbal words alone will not last long. Only interests can ensure that the people are of one mind with themselves. At least now, Xiago has no glory or pride that can make these people willing to dedicate themselves and support this country from the bottom of their hearts. And such a country has always been Yang Song's goal. At that time, when the country is in trouble, these people can spontaneously help and protect her. He has now started from school to carry out patriotic education. Children can also influence their parents and family members, but this is a long process and cannot be rushed. Yes, I obey your command. I don't know what standard is used for comfort, Yang Zhang said. This is the first time. Yang Song thought for a moment and said, award a collective third-class military merit. Yes, your majesty. Yang Zhang still agreed with this matter. After all, he was in charge of administration. If the people were obedient and not chaotic, he would be better at managing them. As for the consumed materials, it was not a problem. Chapter 86 Honor System. After the founding of the country, Yang Song felt that the current Xia kingdom was short of supplies and not fully perfect in all aspects. Especially in the army, there was no promotion system, military merit system, honor system and other systems. So he established a simple military merit system and honor system. The promotion system is still under design, so there is no. The military merit system of the army he established is very simple, divided into two categories and 5 levels. One is personal military merit, and the other is collective military merit. Each type of military merit is divided into 5 levels, from low to high: third class military merit, second class military merit, first class military merit, special military merit, and national military merit. Personal military merit is easy to understand. It is the military merit obtained by a single soldier, such as outstanding performance on the battlefield, contributions made during disaster relief, timely prevention or discovery, to save national resources from loss, etc. And then the level of military merit is determined according to the size of the contribution. Collective military merit is awarded to the collective, just as the contribution of an individual is personal military merit, and the collective is the contribution made by the collective, and the military merit obtained for this. After obtaining military merit, there is not only honor, but also material rewards, bonuses, certificates, and medals. The honor system is a system that complements the military merit system. If you have military merit, you will have honor, but that's not all. There are also cases where there is no military merit but only honor. Moreover, the honor system is not only awarded to soldiers, but to all citizens. As long as all citizens have made outstanding contributions to the country or society, they can get honor. Similarly, honor is accompanied by honor medals, certificates, and bonuses. There are also 5 levels of honor, from low to high: contribution, outstanding contribution, major contribution, special contribution, and meritorious service to the country. However, military merit is only awarded to soldiers, and militia is also considered a reserve soldier, so Yang Song said that it is a reward of a third-class military merit. Honor does not limit a person's identity. Whether you are a soldier or not, as long as you have made contributions, you can get it. Yang Song is still considering whether the scope of application of the honor system should be expanded. For example, people in this world can also get it after making contributions to Xiaguo, but this has not been implemented yet. When he has more interactions with people in this world in the future, he will relax this restriction, as well as systems such as the nationality system. The power to issue and approve honors and military merits is now in the hands of Yang Song, and other officials and officers have the right to suggest and recommend. The other differences are that military merits are awarded with medals, while honors are awarded with medals. The same level of bonuses, military merits will be half more than honors. The appearance and content of the certificates are different. The same thing is that as long as there are honors or military merits, the status in society will be significantly improved, and there will be some privileges, such as special channels, no need to queue, priority to be saluted, exemption from ceremony, etc. These priorities and reputation rights. In layman's terms, having military merits or honors is equivalent to becoming a special citizen, similar to aristocrats. Because Xiaguo does not have an aristocratic system now, there may be one in the future, but not now. So Yang Song thought of such a way to motivate the enthusiasm of officials, people, and soldiers. Just like after Chang San Sheng went to the outside of the pass last time, in addition to the reward, Yang Song also awarded him an honorary medal for major contributions. And all the soldiers of the infantry brigade were awarded a collective second-class military merit. Yang Song did not formulate any policies such as participation medals and commemorative medals. He just wanted to improve the value of honor and military merit, which is not something that everyone can have. After this war, Yang Song will award military medals to the guard battalion, and then find a few outstanding soldiers as models to award personal military medals. Before the founding of the country, Yang Song always felt that the system of the entire territory was very imperfect, but he didn't know where to start. Only after encountering it, he would suddenly remember that there is still this aspect that has not been considered. Even after the founding of the country, various systems are being improved at a very fast speed, but they are still not completely perfect. They can only be accumulated slowly over time to change and improve. Sometimes, the systems and policies that were applicable some time ago will find that the previous systems and policies are no longer in line with the present, and there will even be conflicts. Yang Song had to sigh that there is no perfect system in the world, only the most suitable system. He sighed and turned his attention to the system again. He saw that the public sentiment was slowly recovering under his countermeasures. It seemed that it would return to its original state in a short time. Yang Song was completely relieved at this time. Fortunately, his countermeasures were effective. Otherwise, he would have no good way to deal with the public sentiment. Wanda had been thinking since he heard the man's speech last night. He thought that the man who spoke was right. Although he didn't have any other relatives who were militiamen, he had several neighbors, friends, and colleagues who had a good relationship. He didn't want his wife to know what he had experienced. He would only keep this experience to himself. He didn't want his wife to worry about him. He could even imagine how his wife would behave after knowing this. She would wash her face with tears, be afraid repeatedly, and couldn't sleep in the middle of the night. Thinking of this, Wanda secretly made up his mind that he would never let his wife know about this. At least he would not tell her what he saw. Moreover, those soldiers who were more sad than them could persist, so why couldn't he make it through? You know, the soldiers did it themselves. He believed that the suffering of these people was not unknown. At least those soldiers knew, and they might look down on their performance. The most important thing is that the monarch knows the hard work of these people, and this is a great honor. Not to mention that there is also a collective third-class military merit. That is a military merit. Although it is the lowest level, it is not something that can be obtained by everyone or anything. Thinking of this, he remembered that the monarch had awarded a collective second-class military merit to the infantry brigade stationed in Xianqian Pass in the north. It took a long time to read the content of the reward. looking at the carts of good things, all of which belonged to others. He was a little jealous. Wanda wanted to sign up for the army at that time, but unfortunately, he still had a wife and a boy to support, and he couldn't do without them. This is why he actively signed up for the mission. Now it is finally his turn. Although it is a collective military merit, not an individual one, he is also very satisfied. Now, with the allowance for the mission and the bonus for military merit, my wife and son can live a good life. Think about the exquisite military medal, wearing it on my chest, when I go out. Who dares not look at me straight in the eye? Who dares to block my way? Let's see which official dares to let me salute him first. Thinking about it, Wanda just sat on the steps of the barracks in the military camp, looking in the direction of the parade ground, and laughed foolishly by himself. As for the previous psychological trauma, mental fatigue, and loss of appetite, they disappeared without a trace at some point. Wanda, even if he was asked to move the corpses right away, he would not be afraid. Chapter 87 Preparations for Sea Departure. Wanda, what are you grinning at? Look at you, you're drooling. A familiar voice came from behind him. Wanda came back to his senses instantly, wiped the non-existent saliva, stood up, patted the dust off his butt, and turned around. It's Captain Zao. What's wrong? What's the matter? This man is the captain of his team. His surname is Zao, and Wanda forgot his name. Anyway, it's okay to call him Captain Zao. It's okay. The higher-ups asked us to rest for 2 days, and wait until the transport ship at the dock over there is built. Captain Zao answered Wanda's words, and sat down on the seat, where Wanda had just sat. After hearing that it was okay, Wanda felt relieved, and sat next to Captain Zao again, chatting. Captain Zao, it's good to rest for a few days, but it's a pity that you can't leave the barracks. It's good to have a rest. When the ship is built, you will be busy. Captain Zao answered without turning his head. He looked at the sailors training in the training ground, and asked Wanda, Wanda, do you know? These sailors are not driving warships this time, but transport ships instead. Hearing this, Wanda asked curiously, why not drive warships? What does a warship look like? What kind of ship is a transport ship? Captain Zao heard Wanda's question and ignored him, saying to himself, these natives will have a hard time this time. After speaking, he stood up, patted his butt, and then looked at Wanda, and then left without looking back. Wanda was full of question marks. What's wrong with this Captain Zao? This is incomprehensible. Just as he was still wondering what Captain Zao meant, a sentence came from afar. If you want to know what a warship is, go to the naval port and you will know. Wanda turned his head and looked in the direction where Captain Zao left, thinking, is this talking to me? Anyway, it's okay to go to the naval port and take a look. Anyway, the naval port and the military camp are connected. Go and see what Captain Zao is talking about. Wanda got up and walked around the barracks, passed through several areas, turned a corner, came to the naval port, and saw a scene he had never seen before. 3 tall and mighty ships were docked in the military port, neatly lined up in a row. There was a dock between each ship, and people were moving these things. Some people on the ship were cleaning the surface of the ship, as if they were painting it. This is the battleship that Captain Zao mentioned. It's so big. Wanda thought, but he was confused again. Where is the transport ship? Wanda didn't get an answer. He stood outside the barbed wire and watched these big ships from a distance for a while. He didn't return to the barracks until he got bored. The rest days passed so quickly. In Wanda's impression, it didn't seem to have been long. How could 3 days have passed like this? Boom, boom, boom. The deafening drum sounded in the military camp. This was the order to gather. Assemble, assemble. The captains in the military camp shouted everywhere, calling for assembly. Whether it was sailors or militiamen, they all stood in the military camp's parade ground quickly under the command of their respective superiors. An unknown general-looking man stood on the command platform and issued an order. Order, all Navy soldiers cooperate with the militia to escort the prisoners to the transport ship. Order, prepare the flagship to go to sea and escort the transport ship. Order. Without saying a word, the general-looking man gave a string of orders, which made Wanda dizzy. Fortunately, he was not an officer, so he didn't need to understand these orders. He just had to obey them. This person was Li Bao. As the commander of the Navy, he was originally preparing to explore the north. Unexpectedly, the king's order asked him to lead the sailors to escort these prisoners to the guano island he had discovered before. Many of his preparations were useless, but he was not an ungrateful person. After knowing the role of guano, he agreed with this decision with both hands. He only brought his ship this time, and the other sailors were assigned to the other 2 transport ships. As for the newly trained sailors, they only followed him to sea twice. They are not newbies, but they are not experienced veterans either. So this time, when they go out to sea to transport prisoners, they will let experienced sailors help. When they come back this time, and are familiar with the route, they can safely hand over the 2 transport ships to them. The 3 warships are equipped with only 150 officers and sailors, which is just enough for 3 frigates. Now that the manpower of 2 warships is divided, only 1 warship can be used for escort. As for the main officers such as the captain and the first mate on the transport ship, they are all divided from the original 20 officers, and they will continue to be so in the future. The vacancies will be promoted by the boatswain, and the excellent sailors will be promoted to boatswain, and the ordinary sailors recruited and trained will fill the vacancies for this promotion. In this way, the promotion and transfer procedures of the Navy are roughly completed. As for the problems of declining combat effectiveness and unskilled operation, they can only be honed by time. After working overtime to build, the 2 transport ships were finally completed some time ago, and today, the sea trial has also been completed. The result of the sea trial is of course no problem. After all, there are 3 templates here, as well as drawings in the library and a full set of construction materials. But even so, after a few years, these shipbuilders have completely mastered these technologies. It can be said that from now on, Xiago will not lack construction technology and talents in a short period of time. After this practice, small sea ships and naval towns can be built by themselves. It's a pity that artillery can't be produced, otherwise Xiago can build warships. Xiago's arsenal, to be precise, should not be able to produce qualified artillery. Secondary artillery with substandard range, insufficient service life, and slight caliber differences can still be produced. But what's the use of such defective artillery? The factory does not lack technical information, but lacks technical talents. Just like the construction of these transport ships, it can only succeed after slowly testing, exploring, and cultivating. These transport ships and frigates are completely carved out of the same mold. Only after looking at the fatter body, you will find the subtle difference between the 2. Primary transport ship. 16 meters long, 4 meters wide, 350 tons full load displacement. The hull is divided into 3 layers. The superstructure is at the tail of the cargo ship, and it is used for command and residence. Large cargo can be carried on the open deck. The middle and bottom layers are storage layers, and there is a ballast leak-proof layer at the bottom. 30 crew members are needed. Such a transport ship can carry more than 100 tons of cargo at a time. If the personnel, such as prisoners, do not need a living environment, the lower 2 layers can carry thousands of people at a time. 2 ships means 2,000 people. Of course, they will definitely not carry so many for the first time. Only half of the carrying capacity will be used to carry natives, and the other half will be used to transport supplies. These supplies include mining tools, tents, and of course, food. The first to be picked out are the male prisoners of war collected on the way to the attack. If you get together, there are still 1,000 people. Drive these natives to the bottom layer and lock the door. Anyway, it won't take a few days. Just send some water and a small amount of food every day. This can also reduce the garbage on the ship. The natives were detained, supplies were loaded onto the ships, and personnel were in place. With a shout of set sail, the 3 ships hoisted full sails, turned their backs to the setting sun, headed east, and set out to sea. Chapter 88 Developing the Island. There will be a time to ride the wind and waves, and set sail to cross the vast sea. 3 ships traveled far overseas, breaking the waves on the rough sea. Libeo stood at the bow, holding a telescope, looking at a faint and vague black spot in front of him, waving his cloak, and turned back to the command room at the stern. Looking at the nautical chart on the wall, comparing it with the compass, marking the distance, comparing it with a ruler, and giving an order. The front is about to reach the destination. Order the fleet to maintain speed. This was the dusk of the second day, sailing for a day and night, hundreds of kilometers away from the coast. This voyage happened to coincide with the season when the ocean current passed through this place. Originally, with the high speed of the frigate reaching 10 knots, it would not take so long, but the maximum speed of the transport ship was only 7 knots. There was no way, so they could only reduce the speed and escort these slower transport ships. The planet where this world is located is larger than the previous world, and each nautical mile should be 2 kilometers. When it is located in the ocean current and the wind is suitable, coupled with the excellent power system of the warship, such a high speed can be achieved. 14 kilometers per hour, 26 hours a day and night is more than 360 kilometers. Unfortunately, this kind of good thing is not available every time. When going out to explore, it is good to have 5 knots per hour. And many times, without finding out the route, you dare not drive at night. What if you hit a reef? Therefore, when going out to sea to explore in the past, Libeo's fleet was very cautious and did not dare to drive too fast. Only in familiar waters could they dare to go at full speed. This is why it took so long to complete the exploration of the sea area within a few hundred kilometers of the outer sea. In fact, many times it is not that you can't drive further, but that the ocean far away from the coast is far more powerful than the world before. The frigate-level sea ship is not enough to fight such a storm. In addition, the hardships of long-distance voyages are not something that ordinary people can understand. Long-term nervous tension, physical fatigue, monotonous food, etc. add up to more than a few simple words can explain it. Yang Song also knew the dangers and difficulties of sailing after hearing Li Beo's story, so he did not urge Li Beo. In the early stage, the sailing was mainly adaptive, adapting to the sea conditions, hydrology, astronomy and other environments. After all, it was a different world, and many standards had to be re-established, such as the length of the nautical mile. After a year of adaptation, Li Beo dared to sail with the warship, and he never sailed too far each time. After all, sailing and land are two completely different environments. The ocean is always a place that land creatures yearn for and fear. Its mystery and its richness deeply attract humans. But because of this, the ruthless side of the ocean is often shown in front of human eyes. A small boat in the wind and rain is so inconspicuous and fragile in the eyes of the ocean. Yes, Commander. The captain of this ship responded. The captain turned to the first mate and ordered, "Send a signal and order the fleet to maintain speed." "Yes, maintain the speed. The signal has been sent." After the first mate asked the sailor to send out quotation marks with a torch, he loudly reported that the order had been executed. After a while, the black dot in the distance slowly grew larger and turned into a black shadow. The black shadow slowly grew larger and became an island. When it was close, only the coastline could be seen. When it was still some distance away from the coast of the island, Li Beo ordered, "Lower the anchor, lower the sail, and stop the ship." The iron anchor weighing several tons was placed on the bottom of the sea, and the sails were all lowered. After a while, the hull stopped completely. Li Beo ordered, "Rest for tonight and land on the island tomorrow." The next morning, a layer of light mist floated on the sea, and the island in front was set off in the mist. A sense of mystery. Li Beo ordered to set sail. It took most of the day to circle the island and select a landing point at the southwest corner of the island. In the afternoon sun, the white sandy beach reflected a little crystal, which was extremely beautiful and charming. Put down the boat and start landing. Following Li Beo's order, the boat and the ladder were put down. The sailors, armed with weapons, lined up one by one on the boat, paddled neatly, and rowed towards the charming beach of the island. After landing, the first thing the sailors did was to explore the surrounding environment and find a suitable place to camp. Finally, they found a lake in the center. This lake seemed to be formed by a circular crater caused by the impact of a meteorite falling. After crossing the peak of the crater and looking at the lake in front of them, the sailors stopped and stood there quietly, as if they couldn't bear to break the tranquility from the depths of their hearts that this scene brought to everyone. The calm water of the lake reflected the blue sky above, and the few white clouds floating slowly, as if they were already standing in the sky, with blue sky and white clouds under their feet, making it difficult to tell whether the sky was under their feet or above their heads. After a while, The boatswain broke the silence. Go and see if the water is salty. After trying, they found that this was a freshwater lake. No wonder this island became a habitat for seabirds. There are such abundant freshwater resources here, and there is a relatively calm sea around. With abundant fish, there are many birds, and with birds, there is this guano island. According to the exploration in recent years, this should be an archipelago. There is also a large island and several volcanic islands further east. It is because these islands effectively delay the violent storms in the deep sea that it becomes like a pearl on the sea. It's a pity that, because there are too many birds and the accumulation of guano, there are not many plants on the entire island, but weeds. Otherwise, the environment here would be much more attractive. Let's go. Report to the commander. The river flowing to the sea over there can be used for camping. The boatswain waved the sword in his hand at his men and walked in the direction they came from. The boatswain returned to the warship to report Libeo's discovery on the island. Libeo ordered, start landing. The two transport ships that received the order lowered a row of small boats. Each small boat could carry 20 to 30 people at a time, and there were a total of 18 small boats. Each small boat only carried 20 natives at a time, and 360 at a time. It only took 3 trips back and forth to transport all 1,000 native captives. The whole afternoon was spent in the transportation of the small boats. Not only captives, but also supplies. Transporting these supplies ashore was the most time-consuming. Finally, before it was completely dark, a simple camp was set up in the selected place. The camp was very simple, just a continuous tent, no fence, no lookout, no dock, and no lighthouse. Light a few more bonfires, warm the body, and eat hot meals. Experiencing the sense of stability standing on land is the feeling I miss most when sailing on the sea. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Management Measures. A busy day made all the people who came ashore sleep soundly. Of course, the Tide natives were an exception. In the next few days, Libeo and his team will drive these natives to build and improve the camp, and then build a centralized residential area for themselves in another place, and prepare for the reception of other natives who will come next. In order to facilitate the loading and unloading of goods in the future, they also have to build infrastructure such as docks and lighthouses. Basically, there will be no output in the first half of the year. When the construction of the camp took shape, Libeo returned to the navy town with 3 ships, leaving nearly 100 sailors to guard. They have to transport all the other natives of the navy town as quickly as possible. A total of more than 5,000 mining teams have to run several times. But the next problem was placed in front of Yang Song, that is, there are not enough people to watch over and command the natives on the island. He didn't want to immigrate the people of Xiago to that island, because the island was full of natives, and it was not safe for ordinary people to go there. And letting the militia or the army to be stationed, the cost would be too high. If it was all militia, there would be at least no less than 3,000 people, and the army would not be less than 1 battalion. Such a cost is simply not something that the current Xia state can afford. So Yang Song brought up this matter at the meeting and asked the officials to make suggestions. Yang Song has actually been thinking about this matter. He is in charge of resource development and knows that Xia state is short of manpower, otherwise there would not be so many prisoners in this war. Your Majesty, I suggest using the strategy of using barbarians to control barbarians. So Yang Song told his plan. Yang Song understood a little, sat up straight and said, tell me in detail. Yes. Seeing that he had received Yang Song's initial recognition, Yang Song said, I think since these southern barbarians can communicate, we can use benefits to win over some of the southern barbarians. Use some basic management rights, the reputation rights within the southern barbarians, and the removal of physical labor to win over some of the southern barbarians. Yang Song knew the temperament of his monarch and did not like procrastination, so he said everything he thought of. We can let some obedient Nanman serve as the leaders of other Nanman, and let each leader manage a certain number of Nanman. The leaders are not subordinate to each other, and the leaders can get food without working. Then, we can assign some personal guards to these leaders, so that they have their own close subordinates. This is the management model of using barbarians to control barbarians that he suggested. Good. Let's use this method. Yang Song slammed the table and asked happily, does anyone else have anything to add? Chen Ping stood up and bowed and added, I have some additions to Director Yang's suggestion. Oh, well, Chen Ping, please tell me. Yang Song heard that this intelligence officer who was good at using people's hearts had a suggestion and motioned him to speak quickly with expectation. Yes. I think that in addition to the selection of leaders, a competition mechanism should be established. For example, if the Nanman under the jurisdiction of a leader does not achieve the expected harvest, his status should be reduced to ordinary Nanman, and the excellent Nanman under his command will be promoted to leader. Yang Song thought to himself, this suggestion is really very unfriendly. He believes that the lives of these natives will be very exciting in the future. Moreover, there should be competition among the leaders. The leader whose subordinates mine more minerals will be rewarded, and the last one will be punished. Yang Song raised his eyebrows when he heard this. It felt that what he said just now was only half of it. The power of the second half was not weak at all. Chen Ping's suggestion is very good. Do you have any other suggestions? Yang Song asked with a trite attitude. Chang Sun Sheng stood up and bowed, saying, I'll add one more thing. Yang Song didn't expect that there were really other suggestions, and he agreed with expectation. Chang Sun Sheng, you say it. Yes, I just mentioned some details on the opinions of Director Yang and Director Chen. Chang Sun Sheng bowed and said, I suggest that the supply of food should be limited. When giving these southern barbarians food, the corresponding food should be given according to the amount of minerals mined, but there will be an upper limit. At the same time, the two leaders who mine the most have the right to distribute food to other leaders' teams. Seeing Yang Song's puzzled eyes cast on him, Chang Sun Sheng immediately explained. Giving as much food as the amount of minerals mined is to prevent these leaders from connecting and reducing the daily amount of minerals mined. The upper limit is set to prevent these southern barbarians from working too hard, so that they have the opportunity to store excess food to prevent future troubles. As for letting the two leaders who mine the most have the right to distribute the food of other leaders' teams, it is to prevent these leaders from uniting with each other. People are selfish, and these southern barbarians are no exception. This can alienate the relationship between these leaders, and reduce the authority of these leaders in the hearts of ordinary southern barbarians. At this time, Yang Song was already in awe of the wisdom of these people. He didn't know how to describe these great talents rewarded to him by the system. Wisdom is close to demons? It seems not. These countermeasures are just some ordinary strategies. They just use the strategies that should be used in the right place. But it is very rare to use strategies flexibly and make them work. Anyway, Yang Song said he couldn't do it. Does anyone else have suggestions? Yang Song looked at others with expectation, but no one made any suggestions next. Although he was a little disappointed, he thought for a moment that if he added some more to these 3 suggestions, then these southern barbarians would probably have the fate of immediate destruction. He didn't want to exterminate these natives, he just wanted them to work obediently, so he was already very satisfied. Yang Song roughly summarized the suggestions of the 3 people in his mind. Yang Song considered it from the perspective of management, and also set a tone for this countermeasure. It always feels a bit conventional. Chen Ping applied the competition mechanism to prevent these southern barbarians from being lazy, and could stimulate the mining enthusiasm of the natives to the greatest extent. But the suggestions put forward by Chen Ping were a bit inconsistent with his identity as an intelligence officer. Chang Sun Sheng made a perfection and supplement on top of the 2, alienating people's hearts, preventing unity, and eliminating the hidden dangers of resistance. Such a vicious strategy seems to be more in line with Chen Ping's role. When Yang Song thought of this, he found that the suggestions put forward by several people were a bit interesting. The vicious ones are not vicious, the supplements are not supplemented, and the conventional ones are still conventional. He thought about it again, and instantly understood the thoughts of several people. Yang Song couldn't help but shook his head. This guy was too smart. Thinking too much was also a problem. Not to mention Yang Zhang, he might really just want to get so much. As for the other two, they were afraid that he, the monarch, would be afraid of them. They regarded him, Yang Song, as a big tiger. Moreover, with the wisdom of these two people, they also knew that they would think of these things. As for why they were not afraid of blaming them, it was because the two of them sent him a signal. Chapter 90 Preparation for Execution. In the case of making powerful and effective suggestions, Yang Song once again had to admire the wisdom of these people, as they sent signals to their monarchs. How much pain must their heads have when they were idle, so they would have the spare brain power to do such things, after providing so many excellent strategies. This signal is nothing big, it's just a show of loyalty to him. When Chen Ping, who was working on intelligence, made suggestions on the competition mechanism, Chang Sheng knew what Chen Ping was thinking, so he cooperated with Chen Ping to improve the plan. This is also what Yang Song just figured out. He had to think for so long to know the tacit cooperation between the two of them in that instant. And there was really only a moment of thinking time between the two of them, and in just such a moment, the two of them had the ability to communicate with each other. What a terrible wisdom this is, and what an excellent brain can calculate it. Yang Song also considered whether the two of them had discussed it before the meeting, but he immediately rejected this conjecture, because this plan was proposed by Yang Zhang, and they just added supplements on this basis, and there was no plan. As for whether Yang Zhang would collude with the two of them, this is impossible. Yang Zhang knew that, if he had such great wisdom, he would not be doing the job of executing orders until now. After returning to reality, Yang Song found that he had sweat on his forehead and cheeks without realizing it. This sweat was not caused by fear and worry, but just in that short period of time, he quickly operated his brain, causing his head and even his body to heat up slightly. This was just the burden on the body when forcibly using the brain. Yang Song then reacted. In order to force himself to keep up with the rhythm of the two people's thoughts, he didn't expect that his body was a little burdened. He had to admit that these two people were no longer ordinary people. Yang Song shook his head gently, then smiled gently, and said, "Ha ha ha. You two, it's really amazing." The two saw Yang Song come back to his senses, smiled at them, looked at each other, and returned a meaningful smile to each other at the same time, and bowed to Yang Song at the same time. "I hope your majesty will forgive me for my little trick. I'm sorry to have made you laugh." It's unclear whether this is a suggestion, a signal, or both. Yang Song thought to himself that it was probably both. Let's decide it. Yang Song still remembered what his original intention was, and ordered Yang Zhang, "Just follow this plan. I obey your command." Yang Zhang decided to implement the plan himself. He was also present when the plan was made. He knew all the details of the plan very well. He was the best person to implement the plan. Yang Zhang stopped what he was doing and rushed to the navy town first. When he came, he asked Chen Ping for 2 intelligence officers who could speak the local language. Logically speaking, people who can speak other languages should be asked from Chang Sunsheng of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but Chang Sunsheng has few people under his command. Even these people are asked from Chen Ping, who told him that he has so many talents of this kind under his command. Since Chang Sunsheng made contributions in diplomacy, Yang Song took the opportunity to upgrade the diplomatic bureau to the diplomatic department. He is also the second department level official in Xia State. The next department that Yang Song is going to upgrade to the department is the intelligence department. Unfortunately, the intelligence department has not made any contributions yet, so he has no title to upgrade. Because in Yang Song's design, upgrading the department level is also a reward. Unless it is time to change, he will not upgrade the department for no reason. At least for the current Xia state, there is not much difference between the bureau level and the department level. In addition to the nominal level, there is only a difference in personnel salaries. So he can continue according to this design. He is also providing opportunities for his officials and spurring them on. At the naval port dock of the navy town, Yang Zhang bowed to Li Bao and said, "Commander Li, I'm going to execute the order of the monarch. I hope Commander Li can cooperate." "No problem, since it is the order of the monarch, this commander will definitely cooperate with Director Yang." Li Bao, who originally had his hands behind his back, now saluted Yang Zhang with his fists. Seeing Li Bao's cooperative attitude, Yang Zong smiled and said, haha, Commander Li is very righteous, I admire you. No. Director Yang is a right-hand man of the monarch, and I have admired you for a long time. Li Bao is also a person who respects me, and I respect him 10 feet. He also speaks in an official tone. Okay, it's getting late. Director Yang, the fleet is about to set sail. Please get on board. Yang Zong looked at the mighty warship in front of him and declined. As a civil servant, it's not easy for me to get involved in this warship. I'd better take the transport ship next to it. Since Director Yang said so, I can't make it difficult. Then Director Yang, please do as you please. Li Bao agreed to Yang Zong's request. As the personnel boarded the ship, the fleet transporting supplies set off again. The original more than 5,000 natives had been transported to the island long ago. Because this island has an impact lake and is rich in guano, it was named Long Island. After a day and a night, Yang Zong finally arrived at the island. Even for this short distance, he couldn't stand it. He was not seasick, but a little tired. The shaking hull creaked, and the bumpy cabin made it impossible to fall asleep. He didn't get a good rest all night, and he walked off the boat with a tired face. When he stood on the land, he took a deep breath. He now admired these sailors who have lived on the sea for a long time. After seeing Li Bao, he took the initiative to bow and said, I have never been on a sea ship. I didn't expect it to be so uncomfortable. I'm sorry to make you laugh, Commander Li. Li Bao clasped his fists and returned the greeting, saying, this is the first time Director Yang has been on a sea ship. It's rare that you don't get seasick. I admire you. There was another round of greetings, but this time the feeling was not as unfamiliar as when he got on the ship. It was much closer. Because they set off at dusk, they also arrived at dusk. After a night's rest, Yang Zong felt relaxed again. When he came to the outside of the camp, he looked back at the camp under construction and then looked at the coast ahead. There is a simple pier on the coast that has been built, but looking at its simple appearance, Yang Zong is wondering if those big ships will accidentally knock the pier apart. In fact, this simple pier is much stronger than it looks. Rows of wooden piles deep in the seabed allow the pier to withstand some impacts. On the right side of the pier, there is a beautiful beach at the seaside a little distance away, and on the left side, as the terrain rises, it becomes a mountain. Director Yang, you are here. Do you see that mountain? Li Bao came to Yang Zong early in the morning. He originally came to discuss with him how to start junneling, but when he saw Yang Zong looking at the mountain on the left, he pointed to the mountain road. This mountain is made of guano stones. Even our feet now, and the beach over there are all guano stones. Chapter 91 Plan. What? Yang Zong asked in shock, as if he had just heard an auditory hallucination. Li Bao looked around with a serious face, pointed his finger in a circle, and said, you heard it right, these are all. Yang Zong looked at Li Bao's serious eyes, and after knowing that he was not joking, he calmed himself down, and said with a hint of disbelief, incredible, really incredible. Such a big island, it's all mines. Yang Zong thought about the fact that the national grain production had to increase by more than 3 times, and thought about the large amount of land in the country, and new land was being reclaimed every day. He looked at the island in front of him, and under his feet, and finally thought about his mission here, and said excitedly, no, it's really not enough. Commander Li, there are only more than 5,000 miners, which is far from meeting the needs of Zaya country. Li Bao didn't understand what needs were, but he understood what Yang Zong meant. Yang Zong meant that these more than 5,000 natives were too few. He said, I don't understand these, but there are still many Nanman in the wasteland south of Zaya country. Li Bao was only the commander of the navy. He was powerless about the battles that took place on land. Even if it was on the coast, did he and his men have to go ashore to capture those natives? Yes, you are right. I will return to Cheyenne Key City to report to the Lord. Yang Zong just finished speaking, then shook his head, and then said to himself, no, I still have the Lord's order. I can't get away, and only after the plan is completed can this place accept more Nanman people. Li Bao saw the sailor behind him signaling to him, and said to Yang Zong, who was in a trance, Director Yang, breakfast should be ready. If you have anything, let's talk after breakfast. Yang Zong was called back to reality by Li Bao. He couldn't wait to return to the tent, organize the materials, and prepare to start working immediately. As for his hungry stomach, he didn't care. Li Bao looked at Yang Zong's back helplessly, but he admired such work enthusiasm. He turned to the sailor and said, "Wait a minute, you send breakfast to Director Yang." Yang Zong returned to his tent and took out the plan, which listed the total number of these natives, the number of men and women, and other approximate data. Thinking about how to execute the Lord's order, and thinking about the Nanman miners who would continue to expand in the future, he picked up a pen and paper and began to calculate. Finally, after some calculations and planning, he decided to organize a mining brigade with 1,000 Nanman, and then each mining brigade was divided into 5 mining squadrons, and each mining squadron was divided into 10 mining teams. Each mining team had 20 people, and each mining squadron had 200 people. In this way, these more than 5,000 Nanman had 6 leaders, at least 25 big leaders, and at least 50 small leaders. As for the extra leader, he could only command a few hundred men, and he would be supplemented after the captives came. As long as this grouping mode is followed, no matter how many natives come, they can be quickly put into production. After Yang Zong had a plan for how to organize, he felt hungry in his stomach. Seeing a bowl of porridge that had completely cooled down, 2 mantou, and a plate of pickles, he didn't care about anything else and went forward to eat. He ate this breakfast very happily, and even the dry and cold mantou and the thin cold porridge could be eaten with relish. After breakfast, he found Li Bao and said, "Commander Li, please gather all the southern barbarians. I have something to announce to them." "No problem, I will ask the soldiers to gather these southern barbarians." Li Bao readily agreed. Under Li Bao's order, the soldiers drove all the natives to the beach. Only here was there such a large flat open space. These soldiers were actually militiamen. Li Bao felt that there were not enough soldiers on Filang Island, so he specially applied to Yang Zong for 1,000 militiamen to maintain order on the island. These 1,000 people were separated from the 2,000 militiamen in the navy town. The remaining more than 1,000 militiamen have begun to transport supplies and continue to travel back and forth to the southern battlefield. The 1,000 militiamen on the island will not be polite to these savages. After they were awarded, they were even more motivated. In their eyes, these savages were military merits one by one. Therefore, in Li Bao's eyes, these militiamen are already qualified soldiers. Soon, driven by the militia, these natives were gathered on the beach and surrounded by militiamen with weapons and fierce faces. The natives squatted on the beach trembling, not even daring to raise their heads, fearing that these demons would chop off their heads if they were unhappy. Yang Zong looked at these southern barbarians on the beach and sighed in his heart. These people were completely deprived of the courage to resist by the warriors of the Xia kingdom. Now they only have the most basic survival instinct. He brought 2 intelligence officers who knew the local language behind him, ready to speak to these natives. These 2 intelligence officers were translators. Yang Zong stood on a big rock and spoke to these natives in simple and easy to understand words from a high position. "Listen, I will choose some people from among you to be your leaders. After becoming a leader, you can eat without working, and you can also manage other people." Yang Zong said one sentence, and the 2 intelligence officers translated one sentence. When the translation said that some leaders would be selected from them, many people became agitated, but under the fierce power accumulated by the militia for a long time, no one dared to move. "We also need to select some big and small leaders. As long as these people are obedient, they can work less or not, while others must work and do more work." He wants to win over some and suppress some, and use the wisdom of the other 2 to manage these people. "Now, all those who are willing to work for us stand up." Yang Zong did not select directly, but asked the natives who were willing to work for Xia to stand up. These natives looked at each other, and although they were more agitated, no one stood up. Yang Zong frowned. He didn't expect that no one dared to stand up. Do these southern barbarians hate us so much, or are these people really so united? This is really what Yang Zong thought too much. In fact, it's not that no one is moved, but under the guard of the militia, no one dared to stand up first. They were not familiar with Yang Zong and didn't know if what he said was true. but they were very afraid of the militia, and just now the militia asked them all to squat, and now someone asked them to stand up if they were willing to be the leader. So without being sure whether the latter was true or not, under the fierce power accumulated by these militias for a long time, they didn't dare to stand up at all. In Yang Zhang's expectation, as long as someone stood up, these people who stood up, and those who did not stand up would naturally form to camps, and mutual opposition was the most basic. This was just the first step in Yang Zhang's plan. He thought that he had encountered trouble in the first step of his plan, and was thinking of a solution. A militia captain surrounded by the natives walked up to Yang Zhang and clasped his fists. "Sir, can I have a word?" Chapter 92 Grouping Scene. "Do you have a solution?" Yang Zhang asked when he saw someone standing up to help. After getting a positive answer, he agreed with a doubtful attitude and said, "Then tell me." The person who came was Wang Da's captain, Captain Zhao. His team was also brought to this island. Wang Da was now holding a dagger and looking at these savages with a fierce look. If anyone dared to move, he would glare at them. If they were still restless, he would go forward and teach them a lesson. Unfortunately, there were not many restless savages. They were all too well behaved, which made him very regretful for a while. Who could have thought that a worker who used to be law-abiding, simple and honest would now have such an expression and such thoughts? The battlefield is really a place that can change a person. After getting the consent, Captain Zhao turned around and clasped his fists to the two translators next to him, saying, "Please convey this to me." After getting a nod, he turned around and faced the savages, shouting, "You heard what I said just now. These are all true. Now those who are willing to be leaders, stand up." These natives still had doubts about Yang Zhang, whom they had never seen before. But when they saw that the one yelling at them was the familiar devil, they all believed it immediately. As soon as the translator finished speaking, one native stood up, and then another. When the others saw that these compatriots who stood up did not receive punishment, they all became excited. Among these natives, a large group stood up soon, all looking at Captain Zhao with expectant eyes, hoping that they would be selected. Yang Zhang realized at this time that he had thought too much. It was not that there were no southern barbarians who were tempted, but that no southern barbarians believed what he said. He shook his head gently and sighed in his heart that these barbarians really feared power but not virtue. Yang Zhang looked at Captain Zhao with approval and said to him, "Tell these southern barbarians that what I said is true and they must obey." Captain Zhao clasped his fists and responded, "Yes, I obey your command." He was not polite to the natives and shouted loudly, "This man is our leader. You must obey, otherwise you will suffer a little." Captain Zhao did not repeat Yang Zhang's original words to these natives, but expressed them directly in the simplest way that these people could understand. When these natives heard that Yang Zhang was the leader of these demons, they looked at Yang Zhang with fear and awe, and then immediately lowered their heads and dared not speak. When Yang Zhang heard what Captain Zhao said, he understood that these southern barbarians really couldn't think with their own thinking. As long as they obeyed, what would happen if he was the leader? After seeing Captain Zhao step aside, he continued to instruct, "Now, everyone who stands up, stand on the open space over there." This time, the standing natives obediently walked out of the crowd and stood on a piece of beach next to them. They did not squat down because Yang Zhang, the leader, said that they should stand. After these people fought, Yang Zhang found that the Nanmen who did not stand up were mostly those strong female Nanmen, and those who stood up were all male Nanmen, and they were all relatively strong. Now, Yang Zhang understood a little bit. These Nanmen were originally about the law of the jungle, and strength was respected. The other weak Nanmen also knew that it was useless for them to stand up, so they did not stand up. The other Nanmen had no intention of competing at all. But Yang Zhang didn't care about these. As long as he could complete the task and achieve the final effect, he didn't care who would be these so-called leaders. He came to the standing Nanmen and looked at these hundreds of people. He already had a plan for how to choose the leader next. Aren't these people the law of the jungle? He followed this custom and let them decide who is the leader, who is the big leader, and who is the small leader. Yang Zhang said to the militia captain easily, "Divide them into 6 groups. The militia immediately rushed forward and easily divided the hundreds of southern barbarians into 6 groups. Yang Zan asked someone to bring out a stove with a large pot of meat stewing on it. He said loudly to the southern barbarians, who were divided into groups, whoever becomes the leader can come here to eat a piece of meat. Although Yang Zan could casually appoint an indigenous person as the leader, if he did so, other indigenous people would not accept it in the future. If chaos was caused, it would affect the income of minerals. Although he also wanted to divide these southern barbarians, it must be within a controllable range. He didn't want unexpected troubles to happen. So he decided to let these southern barbarians decide who is the leader. There will be no dissatisfaction among his subordinates in the future. Although there is a plan that the leaders who fail to reach the mining quantity will be replaced. That is a management method for future work, and there is no need to tell these southern barbarians now. When these natives heard that they could eat meat, their eyes lit up immediately. The natives who were afraid of the militia and dared not act at will, who would care about being beaten now? Even if they were to be punished, they wanted to eat a piece of meat first. The groups of natives separated by the militia instantly became a group of demons dancing. No matter who was around, they would punch and kick them and knock them down first. Seeing such a scene, the militia also clenched their weapons and tensed their nerves, fearing that these savages would rush into them without eyes. The preparations of the militia were not in vain. Soon, the natives who were red-eyed, no matter who was in front of them, as long as they were standing, they would rush up, but the militia would not be polite to such savages at all, and kicked them back with one foot. After being kicked, these natives will wake up. Seeing that these devils did not continue to chase them, they quickly turned around and joined the leader fight of their compatriots, as if they were afraid of being picked out. Without weapons, they can only fight with fists, kicks, and even bites with teeth. Anyway, this scene is quite lively, and the onlookers frowned. A native rode on another native and beat the native under him with his fists, making his head full of blood, but then he was kicked away by another native behind him. The native who was just ridden under him not only did not thank him, but got up and flew, hugged his lifesaver, and rolled on the ground. Wherever they passed, there were no fewer other natives affected by them. Such details can be seen everywhere. As long as there are people standing around, they are all enemies who prevent themselves from eating meat, and the enemies must be knocked down. Of course, those devils are excluded. After a unique fight, there were only a few natives left standing in each group. Even those who were standing were covered in wounds and were about to fall. The remaining few looked at each other, then looked at the big pot in the distance with the aroma of meat, and roared at the same time, summoning up the last bit of strength in their bodies, and rushed towards each other. Finally, when there was only one native left standing in each group, Yang Zan waved his hand, and the militia walked up, carrying the 6 leaders who could not walk now towards the furnace. These 6 natives are still standing now, in addition to their outstanding strength. In fact, there is also a competition of luck and will. Chapter 93, Fear. Yang Zan looked at the 6 southern barbarians collapsed in front of the stove, and personally picked out 6 pieces of meat of similar size from the big pot with a short knife, and placed them in front of them. The 6 looked at Yang Zan, then looked at the big piece of meat in front of them, which was emitting a fragrant aroma. They knelt down in front of Yang Zan, picked up the still hot piece of meat with both hands, and held it high, lowered their heads, said a few words in an incomprehensible dialect, and then bowed. Then, the 6 people knelt on the ground, and ate with big mouthfuls. They looked like they were afraid that they would be robbed if they ate slowly. Yang Zan watched the 6 people kneeling silently throughout the whole process, without saying much, but he could feel that this kneeling was very important. Looking at their faces full of sincerity and seriousness, it seemed that it was not only a thank you, but more like a ritual. Sure enough, the intelligence officer next to him explained to him, Director Yang, these southern barbarians are performing a ceremony of submission to you. What they just said was, thank you for the master's gift. Yang Zan was not happy after hearing the explanation of the intelligence officer. Instead, he seemed to have heard something fatal. He shouted in horror, no, if they want to submit, they will not submit to me, but to the monarch. Tell them quickly that I will not accept their submission. Isn't this nonsense? If he agrees to it, although these southern barbarians will work obediently, this matter will definitely reach the ears of the monarch. What will the monarch think of him? As for why he is so sure that this matter will be heard by Yang Song, isn't this nonsense? Don't you look at the identities of these two translators? He doesn't want to be charged with disloyalty. Even if the monarch knows the whole story and will not blame him, how will others view him? Will they say that he has raised private soldiers and intends to rebel? Isn't this asking for death? Before the founding of the Xia kingdom, the king had already issued an order that no one was allowed to raise private soldiers. This order was read out by Yang Zan himself. Therefore, he no longer cares about the Nanman's affairs. What he has to consider now is how to save his life. But the intelligence officer did not immediately translate according to Yang Zang's words, but looked at Yang Zang with a bit of hesitation, as if there was something unspeakable. Yang Zang shouted anxiously, "But what? Hurry up and translate." The intelligence officer also knew the severity of the matter. Seeing Yang Zang's expression that he wanted to eat these natives, he no longer hesitated and said directly, "Didn't you just declare to them that you are our leader?" When Yang Zang heard this, he didn't know what to say. What does this mean? Is that it's his own fault for this situation? Why does he feel like he has shot himself in the foot? His original intention was to make these Nanman listen to him, but who could have thought that these Nanman were so simple? A little effort, a promise, a piece of meat. He just fulfilled his promise. He actually wanted to let these southern barbarians know that he would keep his word. You should be obedient and don't do things that you shouldn't do. Giving them meat is just to provide these southern barbarians with an immediately visible source of motivation. Who would have thought that this slap and a sweet date would make these southern barbarians surrender directly? If he had known it was so easy, would he have to make so many plans with such effort? It seems that it is still caused by the cultural differences between the two. At this time, Yang Zang really had the urge to look up and ask the sky in silence. He not only thought so, he did it. He raised his head, looked at the blue sky and white clouds, and wanted to cry, but had no tears. I don't know what he thought of. Yang Zang sighed deeply, put his head down, looked straight ahead, and said in a free and easy tone, "Just tell the Lord like this. I believe that the Lord is wise and powerful, and will understand my approach." Although he did not say this directly to anyone, the two intelligence officers knew that Yang Zang was speaking to them as intelligence officers. The two looked at each other and did not speak, but bowed and clasped their fists to him and saluted. Yang Zang waved his hands listlessly, indicating that he was fine, and then pointed to the wailing Nanman lying on the ground, and said to the 6 leaders after eating, "Go there to find your men." The intelligence officer translated the order from their master to the 6 natives. The 6 people had already finished the large piece of meat, and were waiting for the master's order. They also knew that the meat was not so delicious. After hearing the translated words, the 6 people stood up, faced Yang Zang, punched their left chest with their right hand, bowed, and turned back to the battlefield just now, to select their own men. Yang Zang saw the 6 obedient leaders. They picked the natives who were still able to move in their respective groups. They didn't care about those who couldn't move. Then they stood behind Yang Zang with their men, looking like they were following his lead. Yang Zang was now in a state of self-destruction, but he still had to do what he had to do. He ordered the militia, divide these squatting barbarians into 6 groups. The militia didn't care about Yang Zang's thoughts. Since the leader had given the order, they immediately followed it. Soon, these squatting people were divided into 6 roughly similar groups. Now, without Yang Zang's orders, these 6 leaders knew that these people would be members of their tribe in the future. The 6 leaders stepped forward and stood in front of the 6 groups of natives, saying something to them. Yang Zang looked at this scene in confusion. How did these barbarians cooperate so well? Did they know what he was going to say next? The intelligence personnel immediately translated what the 6 leaders said. Director Yang, what these 6 southern barbarians said is probably, "You will be members of my tribe in the future. You must listen to your own leaders and even more to you, Director Yang, as your master." Yang Zang then knew what these southern barbarians were thinking. They thought he was in Fiaft. He hurriedly said to the intelligence personnel, "Tell them that I don't want them to be tribal leaders, but leaders of the mining team, right?" The intelligence personnel said a little embarrassedly, "Director Yang, in the language of these southern barbarians, there is no difference between the two. In addition, they know very well what they want to do. Yang Zan finally realized that, in the final analysis, he had suffered from not understanding the southern barbarian language and the conflict between the two in civilization and thought, which caused such a misunderstanding. After figuring out the reason for this matter, he instantly felt alive. It turned out that what he was worried about might not be as bad as he imagined. As for whether he was okay or not, it all depends on the decision of Yang Song, the monarch. Chapter 94 Battle in the South. Yang Zan finally decided that no matter what, he should do his job first and complete the monarch's task before thinking about other things. Even if the monarch blames him at that time, he has at least completed the monarch's task. He hopes that the monarch will punish him less for his contribution. After Yang Zan made up his mind, he immediately devoted himself to mining, and managing the affairs of the Nunman, and consolidated Zaya's rule over the island step by step according to the plan. On the other side, a few days later, Yang Song also learned about Yang Zan's experience from Chen Ping's intelligence. Yang Song was in the study, looking at the report that Chen Ping had just presented to him. It clearly recorded Yang Zan's every word and action, even his final tears and brazen relief. Yang Song shook the report with a smile and said to Chen Ping, tell me, how should I deal with Yang Zan? He deliberately emphasized the word deal with. What kind of person is Chen Ping? He can understand the meaning of the words. He replied immediately, Your Majesty, Director Yang has perfectly carried out your mission. I recommend that Director Yang should be awarded an honorary medal. Yang Song laughed when he heard Chen Ping's words. Haha, approved. Chen Ping, I will dictate. You take notes. Your Majesty. Chen Ping accepted the order and then picked up a pen and paper from the desk beside him, waiting for Yang Song's next oral order. Yang Song walked back and forth in the outer hall with his hands behind his back, organized his words, and spoke in a straight voice. Yang Zhang, who is loyal to the emperor and the country, has worked tirelessly and forgot to eat and sleep to complete the important task assigned to him by the Zaya Kingdom during his tenure as the director of the administrative department. Recommended by Chen Ping, after my review, I hereby award him a contribution level honorary medal as an encouragement. I hope he can continue to work hard and serve the country with his deeds. After Chen Ping recorded Yang Song's oral instructions, he stood up, bowed, and praised loudly, Your Majesty is wise. What Yang Zan was worried about was just a trivial matter in Yang Song's view. Although the decree could not be exceeded, Yang Zan did not break the law. It was just a beautiful misunderstanding. Even if Yang Zan became the master of these southern barbarians, what could he do? Could he not do anything with these natives? So Yang Song was very relieved. This might be better. After Yang Zan dealt with the matter of Filong Island, he would always return to Cheyenne Key City, and the natives could continue to mine minerals according to Yang Song's plan. Moreover, Yang Song also awarded Yang Zan a contribution level honorary medal, because it was not only for this merit, but also for his previous hard work. This was also done for other officials to see, so that they would know that, as long as they worked diligently and devoted themselves to the public, he, the monarch, would see it and would reward them. Southern Battlefield. Since the formulation of the Vortex tactics, Zhu Cheng's hard days have come. As a squadron leader of light cavalry, Zhu Cheng's men were not dispersed like the squadron leaders of the other two formations. They were not mixed into any melee squadron or long-range attack squadron. He still led his light cavalry squadron, but it didn't mean that he was relaxed. Since he was assigned to the southern front, there has been no peace for a moment. No peace for a moment is not an expression, but there is no free time for even a moment. Fortunately, his boss is still his captain, responsible for the command of a team. It's a pity that the boss's boss is not Qi Jun, the original commander of the light cavalry formation, but Liu Yan, the commander of the Malay formation. But there is no way. There is no such perfect thing in the world. He has to patrol with 35 light cavalry early in the morning every day to prevent some blind natives from running around. Once they meet, they will rush forward to kill them if they can deal with them. They haven't encountered those they can't deal with so far. When the infantry starts to attack, they will also shoulder the responsibility of guarding the two wings of the infantry to ensure that the infantry can kill the enemy with confidence. Every time the battle is about to end, He has to seize the opportunity to cut off the enemy's retreat, ensure that no one can escape, and capture as many as possible. The most important thing is that even the end must be done by these light cavalry, not to clean up the battlefield, but to deal with those useless old, weak, sick and disabled. The reason is still because of their high mobility. After dealing with subsequent problems, they can easily catch up with the advancing infantry. The infantrymen were responsible for escorting prisoners and moving the front line forward. After all, they only had 2 legs and could not move as fast as the 4-legged ones. As for cleaning the battlefield, the various teams no longer had the free time to do this. They could only pile up the wasteland hastily, along with the old, weak and sick people of the tribe, adding a conspicuous billowing black smoke to the wasteland. Zhu Cheng sometimes wandered on his galloping warhorse. When would such days end? The daily killing and high-intensity maneuvers made these warriors who used to vomit at the sight of blood become like a machine that only knows how to kill. There was no expression, no complaint, and no mercy. There was only the waving of the sword in their hands. Cold and ruthless was the best description of their current appearance. The daily fatigue made them sleep particularly sweetly when they rested at night. As for preventing the enemy from attacking at night, the infantrymen would do it. Since Zhu Cheng came to the wasteland in the south, none of the natives he saw would go out at night. They all stayed in the simple camp. But now, these natives are also defending the camp to prevent Zhu Cheng and his men from attacking. After all, there is no impenetrable wall in the world. Because no matter how perfect the tactics and methods are, some of the natives still escape due to insufficient manpower, so let the other tribes behind be prepared. Zhu Cheng looked at the camp in front of him. All the natives were hiding and relying on simple fences to defend against the soldiers of the guard camp. Today is only the 6th day of the implementation of the vortex tactics. These natives have received the news and are prepared. But because not too many natives escaped, these tribes are not aware of the strength of the guard camp. They think that they can rely on their own strength and geographical advantages to defend against this invading tribe. Zhu Cheng's light cavalry is a scout and a mobile force. He will not be stupid enough to let the light cavalry attack the prepared camp. This is not bravery and there is no need. Such a hard bone is the time for the infantry to show their skills. He just surrounded this medium-sized camp to prevent the enemy from escaping. As for tactics, like surround 3 and attack 1, they simply couldn't be implemented because they couldn't even surround one side, let alone 3 sides, so they could only circle around the camp. According to the pre-war regulations and the combat rules when encountering a medium-sized tribe, Zhu Cheng notified the 2 adjacent teams on the left and right, and also notified the commander Liu Yan. As for their immediate superior, he knew about this place earlier. In less than a day, the 2 adjacent teams not far apart all rushed over, and of course the commander Liu Yan also came. Now, this place has gathered the combat power of the entire south, enough for a military formation. At this time, everything is ready, just waiting for the confrontation. Chapter 95 Attacking the Camp. As soon as Liu Yan arrived, he saw this tribal camp with a simple fence as a defensive fortification. Seeing these natives holding their ground and defending their camp, he also had a headache. His headache was not that he could not attack the camp, but how to attack it without killing too many people. Not only that, his own casualties must be minor, only injured, not dead. You know, all the soldiers in the guard camp have not had a single death in battle until now. No soldiers died in battle, only injuries. If there was a death in battle under his command during the attack on the camp, he would not have any face to see Zhang Wei, let alone Zhang. It's not that there can't be deaths, but the first death cannot happen in his hands. Moreover, if there are deaths in battle when attacking a medium-sized tribe with the strength of a formation, then he will make a joke. When the civilization level was completely higher than the opponent by several levels, with such an advantage, they also use the strength of a lion fighting a rabbit, taking every battle seriously, formulating perfect tactics and methods, and, with such efforts, there were still casualties, then there was no place to complain. Liu Yan still remembered Zhang Wei's reprimand to himself and others a few days ago, that is, don't forget the original intention of this expedition to complete the king's order. This put a lot of pressure on him. there can be no casualties, and the other side can't suffer too many casualties. What can he do? This is a contradictory situation. In order to have no losses, it is necessary to have the enemy's losses, to reduce his own losses. Night attack, luring the enemy, fire attack, water attack, strong attack. Liu Yan thought of many methods, but they were all rejected by himself. Either they were ineffective, or the losses of both sides were too great. Hey, don't think so much, let's set up camp first. Liu Yan watched the sun slowly set to the horizon, and then ordered to set up camp. He also hoped that the other side would see that there were few people on his side and launch a night attack on them, but the whole night passed, and he still didn't wait for the night attack he wanted. It was not until the end of this hunt that he found out that these natives actually had night blindness. Liu Yan couldn't think of any effective solution the whole night. On the next day, he could only take the lead in ensuring his own casualties and reducing the harvest. Order, deploy the offensive formation. Liu Yan was now the highest commander on the scene, so he gave the order. The light cavalry brigade was maneuvering outside, ready to rush in from the open gap at any time. The close combat brigade and the long range attack brigade met together and formed a long square formation, ready to attack the south of the camp. The other sides had been abandoned by them. If the natives who were hiding in the camp broke through from the other sides, that would be what Liu Yan wanted to see most. As long as they came to the wild, whether these natives were round or square, it was up to him. He waved his left hand back, war drums sounded. Dong dong. Several war drums were beating loudly. Liu Yan drew out his sword, raised it high, swung it forward vigorously, and issued an attack order. Attack. The bugler waiting on the side heard Liu Yan's attack order, and blew the bugle vigorously. This was the signal to attack. The infantry battle formation followed the sound of drums and bugles, marched in neat and firm steps, and launched an attack on the camp in front. The natives in the tribal camp heard the strange noises outside, and felt guilty for no reason. Then they looked at these strange warriors, wearing the same clothes, walking the same steps, and having the same expressions, holding strange weapons, and forcing their tribe together. Although there were not many people, the momentum was something that the people in their tribe did not have. They had never seen such a tribe before, and such warriors were scary to look at. So the leader of this medium-sized tribe decided to defend the tribe to the death. Even if there were few people outside, he would not take the initiative to attack. The decision of the tribal leader made Liu Yan outside worried. Seeing that such coercion still could not make these natives come out of the broken village, a fierce light flashed in his eyes and he ordered, "Prepare for long-range attack." The sound of the horn also changed, and the expressions of the soldiers suddenly became more solemn. Liu Yan saw that the attack distance had arrived, and roared and ordered, "Shoot." Since they didn't know what was good for them, Liu Yan had to fight to be punished, and let them know the consequences of resisting to the end. Liu Yan's roar made the strong crossbow start to speak for the first time. A wave of crossbow arrows flew over. As the distance continued to close, the archers also began to make their own voices with arrows. The distance was still approaching, and after a distance of 100 meters, the crossbow soldiers made these natives know what it meant to tremble in the air and what it meant to be raining arrows. The simple camp could not stop the attack of arrows and crossbows at all. Although some of them were nailed to the fence, more of them got into the bodies of the natives who were waiting behind the fence. Don't underestimate this simple fence. It is because of the existence of this fence that the light cavalry is helpless. Otherwise, the charge of the light cavalry will let these natives know what iron cavalry is. With just these hundreds of natives, they can't withstand a few rounds of arrow rain. The natives were shot and scattered in a few shots. They all stayed away from the fence full of gaps, and hid behind various building obstacles to prevent arrows. The soldiers approached the camp boldly, worked together to cut off the pillars, pushed down the crumbling fence, stepped on the enemy's corpses, invaded the tribe, and entered the camp. The following battle surprised Liu Yan. As expected, the huge casualties of the natives did not appear at all. When they entered the camp and saw the scattered natives, without his order, the soldiers of the Malay brigade dispersed in the form of small teams and began a lively movement to capture prisoners. The Malay fighters found a few hiding behind a messy pile of things and rushed forward with a clear division of labor. Those who needed to be tied up took out ropes, and those who needed to be vigilant held weapons and stared at the natives to prevent the other party from suddenly attacking. The long-range fighters followed the melee team, looking around vigilantly, and when they found the natives who resisted, they were unceremoniously raining arrows. After the fighters tied up the natives, they left them where they were and no longer cared about them, but went to other places to search and capture them. These captives would be dealt with slowly later. On the other hand, the light cavalry brigade has now become a soy source. They can't rush into the camp, so they have to surround and guard outside, and when they see the natives who escape, they will go forward to capture them. In this way, the light cavalry is not completely useless, and it is more or less useful. That afternoon, the fighters escorted the natives out of the camp in groups and listlessly, and the fate waiting for them would be the beautiful Felang Island. These natives who were taken out were all selected, and the rest were all in the camp. As for the fate of these remaining natives, it might be much simpler in comparison. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96, Conquering Territory B. The Southern Front encountered only one medium-sized tribe, and the others were all small tribes. Once encountered, they could be flattened without any effort. The other three directions encountered medium-sized tribes, but the number was different. The two medium-sized tribes in the north actually joined together, which was equivalent to half of the large tribe. In the end, not only did Zhang Wei's 10th team participate in the attack, but there were also 5 other teams to jointly attack the two medium-sized tribes. Zhang Wei even made the worst plan for this battle, in case the large tribe B also participated, and gave him a surprise. He was ready to hold on and wait for help, let the other remaining teams come to help, and then attack from the front and back to counter in circle. But when the two medium-sized tribes were broken, no one from the large tribe B came. Although Zhang Wei was relieved, he was also a little disappointed. The worst thing expected did not happen, so there was no decisive battle in advance. Until the end, all the teams gathered outside the large tribe B, and the large tribe surrounded in the middle became a turtle in a jar. The battle was also a victory. The enemy was like a firefly or a candle in the wind. It was extinguished at the first touch. There was no suspense. The plan was perfectly executed, and the tactics were perfectly effective. Zhang Wei was relieved to see that the battle ended perfectly. There was only one large tribe left. See. That night, Zhang Wei asked Yushu, who had finished counting, "Sima, how much useful harvest did you get today?" Yushu knew what Zhang Wei was asking about. He looked at the account book in his hand and replied, "To the battalion commander, after the battle today, there were 800 young and strong prisoners, 300 children, and 300 boys and girls." Zhang Wei said HMM in understanding, and then asked, "How long has it been?" Yushu heard Zhang Wei's question, turned a page of the account book in his hand, and said, "The second battle, as of today, took 10 days, the same as the first battle." Yushu did not directly say the total number. He knew that Zhang Wei was actually asking about the total process and total return. Yushu and Zhang Wei have been working together for a long time, and they should have a good understanding. Just like Yushu would come to report as soon as possible after counting the military exploits, gains, and losses, Zhang Wei would also wait for his report in the main account every time. And Yushu also knew what Zhang Wei would always ask and what he would care about, so he would always give him a satisfactory answer. The end of the first battle and the beginning of the second battle were 5 days apart. From the departure of the military camp to the end of the second battle, a whole month had passed. Zhang Wei sighed and said deeply, "It's been a month, and only so much time has passed. Why do I feel like half a year has passed?" Yes, this war was too hasty, and there was not much time left for us to repair. Although the enemies are all southern barbarians and are vulnerable, they are too scattered. This is our advantage and our disadvantage. The advantage that Yushu mentioned is that the scattered tribes give them the opportunity to defeat them one by one. The disadvantage is that there are too few troops, the marching intensity is high, the fighting frequency is high, and there is little rest time. Zhang Wei sighed again, sat down, and motioned to Yushu. You sit down too, and tell me slowly and carefully, how much did we gain in the second battle? Yushu held the account book, and bowed to Zhang Wei, then shook the hem of his battle robe, walked to the opposite side, sat down, and opened the account book again. Since the implementation of the Vortex tactics 10 days ago, a total of more than 10,000 southern barbarians have been imprisoned in the concentration camp. These are all young and strong women. As for Yushu paused for a moment, and then reported, as for the number of young children, boys, and girls, there are also more than 10,000. These young ones have all been taken back by Director Chenping. The natives that Chenping needs will be taken back by Chenping first after a certain number of them are gathered, and they will be taken back when the militia returns to transport supplies. These young natives do not need to be guarded. 1,000 militiamen can escort 2 or 3,000 at a time. After all, the concentration camp is only so big that it can only hold more than 10,000 people. These young natives are easily subject to unnecessary losses in the concentration camp. Because of their young age, they are easily hurt by their compatriots in such an environment. These natives do not have the idea of respecting the elderly and loving the young. As long as they are easy to bully and can eat more, who cares if you are a compatriot? Well, very good. This time the harvest is 4 times that of the first time. The Vortex tactics still work. Zhang Wei is very satisfied with the current number, and even more satisfied with the effect of his tactics. Zhang Wei instructed Yushu, after this battle, let the soldiers rest for a few more days. Now that we have achieved so many results, we can take it easy. Yes, I will inform all the commanders later. Yushu closed the account book, bowed his hands to accept the order, then frowned and said, I suggest that the militia come to escort the prisoners as soon as possible. At the current consumption rate, the food and grass are not enough. Zhang Wei also knew how amazing the consumption of food and grass by these natives was, so he agreed, this matter should be accelerated. Can we send another 1,000 militiamen to escort the prisoners? 1,000 militiamen guarded the concentration camp. 1,000 militiamen transported and escorted the prisoners. 1,000 local militiamen in Mushao town guarded the border of Xia state, and the last 1,000 militiamen were all on Filang Island. Zhang Wei wanted the 1,000 militiamen in Mushao town to help escort the prisoners, but he didn't know what the situation was in the rear, so he wanted to discuss it with Yushu. Yushu thought for a while and replied, Captain, this may be a bit difficult, but it is worth a try. After all, there is only one sea left, and the safety of the rear should be no problem. As an important town guarding the south, the rear Mushao town also gave priority to the increase of civilians. By now, there are nearly 5,000 civilians and nearly 2,000 militiamen. Well, you go and give it a try, explain the situation here, and the monarch and the ministers will make a decision. Zhang Wei finally decided to give it a try. There was no harm in trying it anyway. If it succeeded, it would save them a lot of effort in guarding the camp. The fact that 1,000 militiamen could guard more than 10,000 prisoners was due to the solid concentration camp. Otherwise, they would not be able to take care of them. The consent from Yang Song came quickly as usual, and 1,000 militiamen came with him. These new militiamen had never been to the front line, and looked very energetic, but they also represented immaturity. Fortunately, there were 1,000 battle-hardened old militiamen who came with them. The 2,000 militiamen only went back and forth 3 times to escort all the captives to the barracks of the navy town. The 2 transport ships went back and forth 6 times before sending all the young and strong natives to Filang Island. After more than half a month, Yang Zan fully implemented the plan of using barbarians to control barbarians and returned to Xianqi City to deal with the piles of documents. The Southern Guard camp also returned at this time. Chapter 97, Triumphant Return. Calculating the time, this should be when Zhang Wei and his men were conducting the third battle. How come they came back? Under Zhang Wei's order, the guard camp marched towards the last large tribe, which was also the easternmost tribe not far from the coast. Unexpectedly, when he arrived at this place, he did not find any southern barbarians or any tribes, only some traces of the tribes that had existed. He immediately asked the light cavalry to go forward to investigate, and asked them to investigate further, just in case, and sent a team of cavalry to investigate northward. The cavalry sent to the north quickly reported that no suspicious traces were found, especially the traces of the large group of people that Zhang Wei specifically asked them to investigate, and there were no traces. After hearing this news, Zhang Wei's heart, which was about to jump to his throat, fell back into his chest. He was afraid that these disappeared southern barbarians would gather a large group of people to go to Xia State. The rear of Xia State was very empty now, but it could not withstand the invasion of tens of thousands of southern barbarians. Fortunately, these southern barbarians did not go to the north, but should have fled to the depths of the wilderness further south. In order to ensure that his speculation had more evidence, Zhang Wei continued to chase the natives in the direction of their escape for a few more days. As he chased southward, more and more evidence showed that all the southern barbarians in this tribal group had escaped. Finally, when he chased to the southernmost part of this tribal group, Zhang Wei could even feel the sea breeze with a faint smell of the sea blowing from the southeast. Chasing to this point is already the limit, and it is useless to chase further, and there is no point. Zhang Wei ordered the whole camp with a tone of unwillingness and relief, retreat, return home. What he was unwilling to do was that because of his negligence, these southern barbarians ran away. Maybe if he hadn't let the soldiers of the whole camp rest for a few more days, he might have caught their tails. What he was relieved of was that the war was finally over, and he could finally return to Xianqi City, and finally did not live up to the trust of the monarch. Then the intelligence personnel came to give him a piece of information. It turned out that the large tribe of this tribal group, that is, the tribe that Zhang Wei classified as C, was it, and it was the culprit who united the southern tribes to prepare for the invasion. This intelligence also states that this tribe C has used powerful means to subdue the other small and medium-sized tribes in the entire tribal group. After digesting them, they will unite with the other two tribal groups and prepare to invade. It is precisely because Tribe C subdued the other tribes around him, and then in the process of digestion, when it sent people to Tribe B for joint consultation, it was discovered by the exchange team that was conducting friendly exchanges in Tribe B. The next thing is to report to the Lord, withdraw the exchange team, prepare the army, and conduct offensive and defensive operations. As for whether the leader of Tribe B was persuaded, whether it really united, and whether it was really prepared to invade, the information was not in Zhang Wei's hands. Zhang Wei saw the information in his hand at this time and thought a lot, really a lot. He didn't know what the real reason for this war was, and he didn't want to know. Maybe it was unnecessary to know. Zhang Wei led all the soldiers of the guard camp and came to the outside of Xianqi City after more than 10 days of marching. Outside the city, Yushu asked Zhang Wei with some trepidation and doubt, "Captain, is this really a good idea?" Zhang Wei raised his right hand and interrupted Yushu's next words. He looked at the city gate in front of him. From the narrow space of the city gate, there seemed to be many figures in the city. Without turning his head, he just looked ahead and said sternly, "Hasn't this matter been decided? Why do you want to mention it again? Stop it here. It's too late to regret it now." Zhang Wei said, and pointed to the city gate in front of him with his chin. Yushu also saw that it was the last moment of their glory. He felt uneasy and found a topic to divert his attention. He took a deep breath, restrained the uneasiness on his face, and returned to a serious and rational look. Zhang Wei heard the movement around him, glanced at Yushu, and praised, "This is what a simmer of an army and a battalion should look like." Yushu had already fully concentrated his attention, and had no time to respond to the battalion commander's praise for himself. Zhang Wei saw the soldiers who had already lined up behind him, wave forward, and shouted loudly, "All battalions, forward." The drawbridge had been lowered at the gate of the city, the gate was opened, and the streets were cleaned. They were ready to welcome the hero back. Zhang Wei rode his warhorse and took the lead in crossing the gate, but the moment he stood on the street in the city, fireworks exploded, salutes roared, colorful flags fluttered, flowers came in front of him, and the people lined the streets and sang loudly. At that moment, he had the urge to turn back to the battlefield. It was not fear, not timidity, and even less excitement. It was an impulse. Such an irrational idea instantly occupied his mind. Seeing it, being there, and feeling it in his heart, all of this made him have the urge to establish merit again. The grand triumphal ceremony and the officials and people who lined the streets to welcome it made these soldiers in armor and tired faces, whose already upright postures were instantly more resilient. They lined up in neat rows, followed the rhythm of the whole army, and stepped on neat steps. The tired faces could not cover the sharp eyes, and the scars on the bodies could not cover the iron-blooded momentum. Even when part of the soldiers in the battalion stepped into the city gate, the shouts of the people unconsciously decreased. As more and more soldiers entered the city, the people gradually fell silent. Only the fireworks exploding in the sky were still making a different sound. Tap tap tap. The neat and powerful marching sound was the only language besides the high-altitude fireworks. Tap tap tap. The people looked at this familiar yet unfamiliar army, their faces full of shock, their eyes widened, staring without blinking, watching the indestructible and invincible faith of this silent iron army covered with battle scars. Tap tap tap. On the straight and wide main road in the south, the iron-blooded army has returned triumphantly, marching outside the council hall, under the orders of officers at all levels. All the soldiers of the guard battalion rearranged in the Cheyenne Key Square, facing north. Zhang Wei turned over and dismounted, standing upright at the front of the formation. The soldiers of the entire camp looked at the monarch who had already stood on the steps in front of the gate of the council hall, and looked at him with expectant eyes. Zhang Wei stood still for 3 seconds, walked to the bottom of the steps, knelt on one knee, holding the monarch's order, and said loudly, "Guard battalion, report back." Yang Song looked at this iron-blooded army, this small guard battalion, and these 1,100 soldiers, and his heart was surging. It was hard to help himself. He raised his right hand to Zhang Wei, looked around the soldiers of the entire camp twice, and replied loudly, "The monarch's order has been completed. All the soldiers of the guard battalion have worked hard." The soldiers who had been waiting for a long time heard the affirmation from the monarch with their own ears. Although the military discipline ingrained in their bones did not make the soldiers shout immediately, the ups and downs of their chests had already expressed the excitement of the soldiers. Commendation order. All the soldiers of the guard battalion have won the collective second-class military merit, and your achievements will be spread throughout the country to boost the morale of the military and civilians. This commendation had been decided long ago. Yang Song personally affirmed the merits of the guard battalion in front of the people of the whole city. For the soldiers, this was the best reward. Chapter 98 Review Meeting. Yang Song looked at these soldiers. Their armor and battle robes, which were bright and majestic before the expedition, were now covered with marks and mottled. Although he learned from the battle report and the system that the soldiers of the guard camp had not been damaged, he could still see the danger of the battlefield from these battle scars. After the commendation order was conveyed, Yang Song waved his hand. Zhao Wu, who had been waiting on the side, walked to Yang Song solemnly with a tray. Yang Song walked down the steps, and Zhao Wu followed Yang Song with the tray in both hands. He came to Zhang Wei, helped Zhang Wei up, and then took an exquisite bronze medal from the tray. He was about to put it on Zhang Wei's chest, but found that the other party was wearing armor. He had no choice but to hand it to Zhang Wei. While handing the medal to the other party, Yang Song looked at the other party and comforted him seriously. "Zhang Wei, you have worked hard." After that, he patted Zhang Wei's shoulder hard. Zhang Wei looked at Yang Song with emotion, then looked at the medal in his hands. His face flushed with excitement. He clasped his fists towards Yang Song and said loudly, "I will serve you, even if it means my death." "Very good." Yang Song praised Zhang Wei with satisfaction, turned to Zhao Wu and ordered, "Zhao Wu, award medals to other soldiers." "Yes, I obey your command." Zhao Wu accepted the order, and then the soldiers of the guard battalion awarded medals to each soldier in the guard battalion. There were 1,100 soldiers in the guard battalion, and Yang Song couldn't award medals to each soldier in person, nor did he need to go to all of them in person. It was enough for him to award the medal to Zhang Wei in person. Not to mention that there was not enough time to award them all in person. The most important thing was that this was just a ceremony, and Zhang Wei was the representative. But don't underestimate such a ceremony. With this ceremony, the military spirit and loyalty of these soldiers are all concentrated on Yang Song alone. The soldiers of the guard battalion were divided into groups of two, one holding a tray and the other awarding medals, and each tray had multiple medals. The soldiers of the guards represent the monarch to award medals to the soldiers. When awarding medals, the tacticians of the guards will first salute, and then the soldiers of the guards will put a medal in each other's hands with both hands and return the salute. Rows and columns were awarded one by one, and soon all the medals were awarded. There was no extra medal, and no less medal. Finally, Yang Song returned to the steps, and faced the soldiers of the guards. He did not speak, but said a simple and sincere sentence, "Welcome home." The celebration banquet at night is indispensable. Tonight, the prohibition of alcohol in the guards was also cancelled by Yang Song. He wanted to let these tired soldiers relax. Of course, only tonight. After tonight, Yang Song also gave the guards a 5-day holiday so that the soldiers could go home and reunite with their families. Yang did not participate in the celebration banquet tonight. He just went to the banquet, drank a bowl, and returned to the mansion. He also knew that his identity would make the soldiers unable to let go on that kind of occasion. After leaving the military camp, listening to the lively noise coming from behind him, he was not so lively when he was there just now, which made him feel a little lonely. Although he has experienced it very much, he still has to sigh that it is lonely at the top. Yang Song knows that if you are in a high position, you must have the determination to face loneliness. It is said that this position has great power, but it is also deeply cold. Why do I feel old? I'm obviously only 21 years old. Yang Song stabilized his mind, no longer paying attention to the noise behind him, and walked forward with firm steps. He decided to go back, to find 2 small flowers, let the fragrance of these 2 small flowers soothe his lonely heart. The next day, Zhang Wei and Yushu had to make a formal and comprehensive report before they could go to rest. All the officials came to the council hall. Although today is not the day of the big and small court meetings, they are still here. Today is to review this war. Zhao Wu was also called by Yang Song. Maybe he wanted him to see the glory of his former comrades in arms today. I don't know if he will be hit. After everyone greeted each other and sat down, Yang Song took the lead and said, "Your mission was completed very well. I'm very satisfied. It is my honor if your majesty is satisfied." Zhang Wei and Yushu heard the words of their majesty and stood up and replied. Yang Song raised his hand to let them sit down and said, "Start reporting. Sit down and talk." "Thank you, majesty." The two bowed again before sitting down and starting to report. "Your majesty, this time I led the guard battalion to fight against the Ninmen. After 2 battles, we killed more than 10,000 enemies, including..." Zhang Wei began a 3-hour report, including the heavy killing from the expedition to the first battle, the vortex tactics of the second battle, and the final pursuit. He narrated the whole process of this war from beginning to end, and after Zhang Wei finished describing the battle process, Yushu supplemented it by describing the soldiers' military exploits, the number of injured, and the consumption of supplies. After the 2 protagonists finished their reports, Yang Song's report followed. "I have asked the 17 chiefs of Feilong Island to mobilize their men to mine with all their strength. It is estimated that more than 50,000 tons of guano can be mined every month. The teams of Ninmen are very well behaved under the leadership of their chiefs, and among them, Yang Song mainly talked about the management of prisoners during this period and estimated future gains. The rest was the conscription of militia and the consumption of various materials, among which food and grass were the most important. Your Majesty, because there are more than 16,000 Ninmen, the country's food reserves have been consumed a lot, and now it can no longer support the conscription of 50,000 people within half a year." Yang Song asked, "How many people can be conscripted within half a year?" He didn't even have time to ask about the mining gains, and he heard that there was not enough food, which made him very worried. Team Yang Song knew the domestic food reserves very well, and he said, "Your Majesty, we can only add 10,000 civilians." "What? Only 10,000 civilians? Aren't there only 16,000 Ninmen? Are these Ninmen so hungry?" Yang Song was very shocked by the consumption of food. With a monthly food reserve of more than 100,000 people, he could only add 10,000 civilians. This made him doubt the decision to capture Ninmen. Yang Song smiled bitterly and said, "Your Majesty, war consumes a lot of food. In addition, there are 15,000 Ninmen who are temporarily useless. Yang Song heard Yang Zhang's answer and understood that in addition to the consumption of war, there were 15,000 unproductive chess pieces consuming the foundation of Xia's state. Although they might be useful in the future, now this is a bottomless pit, a black hole that only goes in but not out. Yang Song looked at Chen Ping and asked, Chen Ping, does the intelligence bureau need so many southern barbarians? Chen Ping bowed and replied, Your Majesty, no. Without waiting for Yang Song to continue asking questions, he explained, I plan to select a small number of outstanding southern barbarians from these more than 10,000 people for training, and only 1,000 of them will be selected. Yang Song asked in confusion, since only 1,000 people are needed, what are you going to do with the extra people? Chen Ping replied, the remaining boys and girls can be used for mining. These southern barbarians are already good laborers at this age. As for the young children. Chapter 99 Food Problem. When Chen Ping said this, his face turned ugly and his brows furrowed deeply. He looked at the surrounding environment and did not continue to explain. Yang Song understood that it was not good to say more in front of so many people, so he did not ask more questions, but asked, how much does the Intelligence Bureau consume for food and grass every month? Chen Ping roughly calculated in his mind and immediately replied, replying to the Lord, the Intelligence Bureau needs 100,000 katas of food and grass this month, 80,000 katas next month, and 20,000 katas per month in the future. Until 10,000 katas per month. So little? Yang Song was very surprised. Is this amount of food and grass enough for more than 15,000 Nanmen? Yang Song immediately asked what he was thinking. Chen Ping continued to explain, half of these more than 15,000 Nanmen are boys and girls. I will be able to select them in the near future, and the rest can be handed over to Director Yang. It turned out that the demand could be reduced by half immediately. No wonder there was only so much food and grass. As for why the consumption of food and grass could be reduced by another 20,000 katas per month in the future, Chen Ping did not say it, and Yang Song did not ask. Because after this meeting, he will ask clearly and clearly. There is no rush now, there are reports from other departments. After Yang Ren and Chen Ping of the Hubei Bureau finished their reports, they continued to report, Your Majesty, this war mobilized 5,000 militiamen, without any losses, and these militiamen were awarded the collective third-class military merit by the monarch. After Yang Song nodded to confirm, Yang Ren continued, consumption of military rations of 500,000 katas, crossbow arrows of 10,000, arrows of 12,000, crossbow arrows of 30,000. Wound medicine of 100 katas, bandages. Yang Song didn't care about the consumption of other materials. He felt his scalp tingling when he heard about the consumption of food and grass. It's only been a month, and 500,000 katas have been consumed, and it's just military rations. If this continues for a few months, the rest of the people in Xia will starve to death. The army of Xia has military expenses, and military rations are bought from the people or civilian warehouses with military expenses, and most of them are directly purchased from the civilian warehouses. It is not allowed to buy food directly from the people without Yang Song's approval. This is a new model, which separates the statistics of military rations from civilian rations. Although most of the time it is just a formality, or it flows from the left hand to the right hand, it seems troublesome, but in fact it is a procedural and systematic management method, which is the so-called scientific management. Another point is that it is convenient for Yang Song to control the army and finance. For example, there are grains in the warehouse, but they are purchased by the army, but this is only a result on paper. In fact, these grains are still in this warehouse, and are still under the unified management of Yang Zhang. The army's daily consumption is usually drawn from these warehouses, and other departments also draw grain from this warehouse, but in the account, it will reduce the remaining figures of each department, until it is consumed, and then each department will have to buy it again. Yang Ren, who manages the warehouse, takes this money to buy grain from the people, or buys grain from the treasury, which is another cycle. Xiago only has so many taxes every quarter, and all departments need to develop consumption, so Yang Song and Qian Liang need to consult with each department at the meeting, to decide the amount of funds, materials, of each department. This is management science. A whole set of procedures is complex and effective, so complex that it can't fit on a bookshelf. The government system established by Yang Song is to better manage, coordinate the development of all aspects, make a plan, and effectively manage, so as not to make the society chaotic. For example, in this war, a total of 800,000 katas of food and grass were consumed in 1 month. 500,000 katas of military food, and 300,000 katas of the rest. The 500,000 katas of military food consumption is the consumption of the militia, fleet, guard camp, and the prisoners, before they arrived in the country during the war in the past month. 300,000 katas is the consumption applied by Yang Song and Chen Ping, after they took over these prisoners. In fact, only 800,000 katas of food and grass were consumed in total. As for why military food and other food are distinguished, this is the division of power, resources, finance, etc. by various departments. Therefore, Yang Song said that he knew that the consumption of food and grass in the war was huge, and Yang Ren would report the specific figures again. 800,000 katas of food and grass, what a huge number. This is just 1 month's consumption. In the future, 650,000 katas will be consumed every month. Only the consumption of the militia has been reduced, and other aspects have not been reduced at all. During the mobilization period of the militia, all the food was supplied by the government. After the disbandment, this part can be ignored. However, 30,000 natives, big and small, only have consumption and no income every month. If this continues for a long time, there will be a deficit, or in other words, there is a deficit now. However, in order to increase grain production in the future, guano must be mined. Mining requires manpower, and manpower consumes grain. Before the real increase in grain production, this requires investment. This is an investment process. But now, the investment seems to be too large, and it is about to cause a shortage of capital chain. This part of the deficit can only be made up from other aspects. But Yang Song does not want to reduce the conscription of the people. This is the foundation of the development of Xiaglo. He also does not want to abandon these hard-won cheap labor. However, there is only so much food. What should I do? Just when Yang Song was distressed, Chang Sheng stood up and said, "Your Majesty, I suggest that we open a trade route with the north immediately and buy grain from abroad." Yang Song's eyes lit up immediately after hearing this suggestion. Yes, there is no food in the country, but there is food abroad. His long farming career has almost made him forget that there is such an effective method as trade. Some time ago, Chen Ping was asked to select personnel and prepare a caravan to facilitate the investigation of the local civilization in the north. I didn't expect that it could be used for real trade now. Yang Song hurriedly asked Chen Ping, "Chen Ping, is your caravan ready?" Chen Ping stood up again and replied, "Your Majesty, during this period, I have selected suitable personnel, but because of the war, these personnel have been divided for other uses, and now they can be reassembled." "Good, very good. Chen Ping, you will gather these people immediately, and prepare to form a caravan." Yang Song turned to Yang Song and said, "Yang Song, your business bureau has come for a mission." Yang Song is in charge of administration, and he has a business bureau under him that is responsible for business development and planning, but it has only been responsible for the domestic market and has no presence. Yes, I will definitely make a list of the missing materials and let the people in the business bureau coordinate with Director Chen. Yang Song knew what to do next and immediately stood up and promised. He had just won a Medal of Honor, and it was a moment of high spirits and full of energy. After the biggest food problem was solved, Yang Song felt relieved. He decided to wait and see the harvest of the caravan, if there was more food by then. Next, other departments continued to report on their respective situations during the war. Except for the Military Industry Bureau reporting on overtime, all other departments were normal. Yang Song finally summed it up in his mind. This short month of war consumed 60% of the materials accumulated by Xia Kingdom over the past few years. Chapter 100 Training Methods. It's really scary. After 3 years of accumulation, 60% of the materials were consumed in just 1 month, and this is without any loss of personnel. This war is called a war, but it is just a search and arrest operation, and it is not a real war. Even so, there is such consumption now. Or is it because the development time of Xia state is short? Most of the gains have been invested in a new stage of development, and there is not much surplus at all. Yang Song thought and sighed. Or is it because the current scale of Xia state is too small? War is really not that fun. After the meeting, Chen Ping consciously had no position, and the others left consciously. Now there are only two of them in this council hall. Yang Song looked at the empty council hall, which was completely different from the meeting just now, and said, "Speak." "Yes, my lord. For this matter, I still need to start with the purpose of these young children." Chen Ping asked Yang Song to give him some time so that he could explain it slowly. Yang Song was not in a hurry at all. Today's affairs were almost dealt with. There was plenty of time. He said, "Then let's start from the beginning." Chen Ping bowed, sat down, and slowly began to speak. "Your Majesty, in the last meeting, I explained that I needed these southern barbarians to train intelligence personnel." Yang Song nodded in understanding. It turned out that Chen Ping started from the beginning, and it was from that time. "I have asked for all the suitable southern barbarians, and this has also been approved by your Majesty." Chen Ping continued to explain. Yang Song still remembered this permission. He didn't think much about it at the time, but now it seems that there is a reason. "Among these people, I have almost finished selecting boys and girls. I will only select those who are handsome and beautiful. The rest are all making use of their remaining energy. So that's it. As long as they are good looking, it's no wonder that they are selected so quickly." But how did Chen Ping make these people make use of their remaining energy? Chen Ping continued, "I asked these able-bodied southern barbarians to find a place in the deep mountains of the north to build a base. This base is used to train intelligence personnel. It is far away from human habitation and isolated training, so that these southern barbarians will not come into contact with their own people." Yang Song also knew about this. He looked at the small map and saw a small dot on it. This was the training base for intelligence personnel that Chen Ping mentioned. After the older men and women have built this base, they will all be handed over to Director Yang. As for confidentiality, I think as long as they are on Felang Island, there will be no need to worry about any leaks. Isn't this nonsense? Even if they are not imprisoned on the island, Yang Song will not let these people leave at will. The next thing is what I don't want to say, but I have to say it. Yang Song couldn't help but ask, "Is it so difficult to start?" Chen Ping's face changed several times in a row, which made Yang Song stunned. He didn't expect Chen Ping to change his face. Chen Ping, who finally calmed down, replied, "Your Majesty, what I'm going to say next is all true, but the content is a bit cruel. I hope your Majesty will be mentally prepared." Yang Song did not speak, just looked at him. Yang Song had long known that the darkness in the world was indispensable, and he wanted to hear what kind of darkness Chen Ping was going to tell. "I will gradually eliminate these children in a few months, and only select 1,000 children who are initially qualified to train them." It turned out to be elimination, nothing. Why should he be mentally prepared? Yang Song thought to himself. Wait, there are only 1,000 qualified children? Or 1,000? He remembered that there were more than 7,000 children brought back, nearly 8,000. Yang Song looked at Chen Ping in disbelief. He didn't expect that the man in front of him had such a cruel side. He could only think that he was worthy of being an intelligence officer. Chen Ping did not look at Yang Song's expression that was about to pop out his eyes, but continued to say, "This is just the first step. Next, there will be further elimination, but it will be eliminated slowly in long-term training." "Still need to continue elimination?" Yang Song asked directly. "How many people will be left in the end?" Chen Ping replied, 300 boys and girls, 300 young children. This is the highest goal I have set. Only 300 people are needed. You have to know that there are more than 15,000 natives. Excluding the 7,000 lucky ones who are not good looking, only 600 people are needed for 8,000. What kind of elimination rate is this? When Yang Song heard about 1,000 people at the meeting, he didn't care. This number should be a stopgap statement at the time. At this time, he calculated in his heart, 600 left for 8,000. 7.5% survival rate, 92.5% elimination rate. The number of eliminated southern barbarians is a bit too much. Yang Song then asked a question that made him regret it. "How did you eliminate those Nanmen?" Chen-Ping replied expressionlessly. 8,000 Nman. The first step is to divide them into two teams. One is the older team, because only a few hundred people are qualified, so not many are eliminated. This is a special training team, and we will try to complete the training within a year, and let them set up a bright tavern outside the northern pass to collect intelligence. Yang Song still has some understanding of how to collect intelligence in this regard. As for how to train, he didn't ask. There is no point in asking. Chen-Ping went on. The second team is the team of young children, with more than 7,000 of them. In the first stage, we will lock them up together and only provide a small amount of food. In order to get this food, they will get rid of the excess population themselves. I call this stage raising poison. The goal is to keep 1,000. In the second stage, we will let the remaining young children undergo unified training. This should be the happiest stage for them. They will have plenty of food every day and just need to receive certain learning and training. In the third stage, the combat stage, we will let the companions who have undergone unified training attack each other, leaving behind those who are hard-hearted enough, skilled enough, and smart enough. This stage will be carried out in a few years. The goal is to keep 500. In the fourth stage, the advanced elimination stage, after a few years of growth, the bodies of the 500 people are able to accept intensive training. At this stage, those who cannot keep up with the intensity of the training will be naturally eliminated. In the fifth stage, the inspection stage, this is also the last stage. Trial tasks will be issued, and those who complete them will be the final qualified ones. These children, who will number no more than 300, will become the sharpest and most loyal dagger in the hands of the monarch after years of training. After listening to Chen-Ping's story, Yang Song was a little moved, a little shocked, and a little regretful. He also knew that these young children would become killers, spies, and assassins in the future. Although this training method is a bit cruel, for the sake of Zhiguo, he also knew that such people are indispensable. Fortunately, these natives were used, not the people of Zhiguo. Thinking of this, Yang Song ordered loudly and solemnly, Chen-Ping, use this method to train such people in the future, and it is forbidden to use the people of Zhiguo. I obey your order. Chen-Ping knew that Yang Song was talking about prohibiting the use of elimination methods to train the people of Zhiguo. It was still okay for ordinary intelligence personnel to use the people of Zhiguo. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.